Chapter 26 Jerry, Hermione and Neville. During the chat, Hermione also gradually discovered that Jerry was actually a kindred spirit like herself. Although he didn't have as many textbooks as he had memorized, he had a lot of his own opinions on magic theory and various spell knowledge. Immediately, I became interested, and at the same time, I recognized Jerry more in my heart. As the saying goes, it's too much if you don't speculate, but it's less than 1,000 glasses of wine when you meet a bosom friend. Jerry and Hermione talked more and more vigorously, and the more they chatted, the more engrossed they became. Before he knew it, he didn't even notice that the Hogwarts Express had started to leave the station. "Hello, is there anyone here? The other places are full." At this moment, a stuttering voice suddenly sounded, interrupting the magic communication between Jerry and Hermione. In the aisle of the box, a round-faced and chubby little wizard was holding a golden-backed toad in his left hand and pulling the suitcase in his right hand. His eyes glanced at the empty seat opposite Jerry and Hermione from time to time. "No one, you can sit across from us," Jerry replied with a smile. The boy immediately happily pushed the suitcase to the corner of the box, then sat down with the toad in his arms. My name is Neville Longbottom, I'm a freshman this year, you can call me Neville." After the boy sat down, he introduced himself nervously. "Jerry Carmen. Hermione Granger." Jerry and Hermione glanced at each other. They could see that the boy opposite was a little nervous, so they smiled and introduced themselves at the same time. Perhaps feeling the kindness in Jerry and Hermione's tone, the boy gradually relaxed and joined Jerry and Hermione's chat. However, since Neville hadn't previewed the textbook yet, the three of them stopped talking about magic at this time, but talked about their respective births and family situations. When talking about his family, Neville, who was a little nervous, was no longer so restrained. "I was brought up by my grandmother, but all these years, our family has treated me like a muggle, and my uncle Algy always tried to force me to show my magic by taking advantage of people's unsuspecting." Then, Neville talked about his tragic experience of being thrown into the Black Lake by his uncle Algy and almost drowned, and thrown from upstairs and almost fell to death. "I heard Jerry and Hermione say that the elders of the pureblood wizard family really know how to play. In fact, according to Jerry's knowledge, Neville's parents seem to be both aurors. During the First Wizarding War, they were captured by Death Eaters and tortured to the point of insanity with the Cruciatus Curse. They were admitted to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical injuries and injuries. In order to make Neville, who was only 1 year old, forget the cruel scene of his parents being tortured, his grandma cast a forgetting curse on him. It may be because Neville was too young at that time, which caused side effects after being cast on the forgetting curse. My mind is broken, and I become very forgetful. In other words, can a 1-year-old really remember things? Jerry has also heard people say that Neville is actually the prophesied son in Professor Trelawney's prophecy, because Neville's parents are both aurors, policemen in the wizarding world, who have attacked Voldemort at least 3 times, and Neville was also born in July moon. Even when it was just born, it was able to magically make the blanket wrap itself more tightly. If it wasn't for the damage to the mind caused by the sequelae of the forgetting curse, and the inability to smoothly control the magic power in the body, Neville's magic talent might not be worse than Voldemort. However, these are actually not important things to Jerry. He doesn't care who is the son of prophecy. How to seek benefits and strengthen his own strength through the general plot trend he knows is what he has to consider. After Neville finished talking, Hermione also began to chat about various anecdotes about her childhood life before receiving the admission letter, and the changes after receiving the admission letter. Unlike Neville, who came from a family of pure-blood wizards, Hermione lived in the suburbs of London. Her parents were both dentists, and she was a pair of ordinary muggles who didn't understand magic. Perhaps it was because she was not born into a wizarding family that Hermione always wanted to prove herself so much. But the income of the dentist is considerable, and her family also belongs to that kind of happy and harmonious type, so her childhood was actually very happy. After both of them finished speaking, they turned their eyes to Jerry at the same time. Jerry froze for a moment, then immediately reacted and said, "I am an orphan. I was abandoned in an orphanage since I was a child. I don't know whether my parents are wizards or muggles. I only know the existence of magic when I received the admission letter from Hogwarts." Orphan. Neville and Hermione looked at Jerry with sympathy gradually. Although Neville's parents are both in the hospital, he still has his grandmother, uncle, and aunt who love him, and he hasn't suffered much since he was a child. Although Hermione was born in a Muggle family, she was also an only child. She was the jewel in the palm of her family since she was a child, and her childhood life was not unhappy. In contrast, Jerry's status in this world is indeed a bit miserable. I didn't expect that Jerry's life experience is so miserable, but he can still face life with a smile, and he is so positive and optimistic. He is really brave and strong. Hermione saw that when Jerry told about his life experience, he didn't have that kind of sad and uncomfortable expression at all, instead he showed open-mindedness and sunshine everywhere, and he felt both sympathy and admiration in his heart. "Honey, do you want to buy something to eat?" At this moment, there was a loud clicking noise in the aisle, followed by a smiling woman with dimples, pushing open the door of their box. It turned out that the three of them were chatting vigorously, and before they knew it, it was past 12 o'clock at noon. Looking at the various snacks on the trolley, the three of them suddenly felt their stomachs growling. "I want a chocolate frog." Neville got up first and ran towards the cart. Hermione and Jerry also got up at the same time, and started picking on the trolley right after. In the end, Neville returned to his seat with a bunch of chocolate frogs, Hermione just took a cauldron cake, and Jerry asked for 3 pumpkin pies and a box of bibbies. Hogwarts gave Jerry 100 gold galleons a year as a bursary. After buying all the necessities, there were 4 or 5 gold galleons left, which was enough for his daily expenses for a year. You know, the board and lodging at Hogwarts are free, and these magical snacks are not expensive. For 3 pieces of pumpkin pie and a box of BB's multi-flavored beans, Jerry only spent 1 silver sickle and 15 copper nuts. The 3 pieces of pumpkin pie were used by himself to satisfy his hunger. Compared with the snacks of Kikai Baba, he still prefers to eat the staple food of pumpkin pie. As for the box of BB's multi-flavored beans, he plans to keep it and give it to his sister Aisha when he returns. BB multi-flavored beans, the famous product of the world's jelly bean company, are said to have more than 700 different flavors. From the common flavors of chocolate, strawberry thin, mint candy, orange marmalade, etc., to the special flavors of spinach, pork liver, and tripe, as well as the heavy flavors of vomiting, earwax, and snot. Presumably, my sister must like this magical snack very much. End of this chapter. Chapter 27 Jerry's flag crackling. Neville stretched out his hand to hold the chocolate frog that jumped onto the table from the box, and then put it into his big mouth, bit off the head of the chocolate frog in one bite, chewed and swallowed it into his stomach. So cruel. As for the golden-backed toad Life, who was lying next to Neville, watched Neville eating chocolate frogs, he shivered silently, turned around, and jumped off the seat quietly, almost leapfrog disappeared. "Neville, you seem to like eating chocolate frogs." Hermione ate the cake in her hand, watching Neville eat 6 chocolate frogs in a row, she couldn't help but wonder. "I don't really like it either, but it contains pictures of famous wizards, which I have already collected." "Oh, what to do, I forgot how many pictures I have collected, and there are still those pictures that I haven't collected yet." Neville took out a picture from the box and placed it in front of the two of them. He was just halfway through the explanation when he suddenly became sad. Sure enough, this combination of blind box opening and collection addiction is very useful for people of any age and country, even wizards are no exception. Jerry remembers that when he was a child in his previous life, he seemed to have only a little pocket money, so he bought the little raccoon instant noodles. He didn't like to eat it much, but just to collect the water margin 108 cards inside. Although it was not collected until the end. Shaking his head to interrupt the memory, he and Hermione looked at the picture on the table together. "I saw that the picture showed an old man who was obviously very old, because his hair and beard were all white. The old man has a long crooked nose, a pair of half-moon glasses, and a purple magician's robe. He looks very kind. A name is written under the card, Albus Dumbledore. It's Dumbledore." Hermione let out an exclamation when she saw the name. Jerry raised his hand and turned over the picture, and a series of introductions about Dumbledore appeared on the back of the picture. Albus Dumbledore, current headmaster of Hogwarts, widely regarded as the greatest wizard of our time. Dumbledore's notable contributions include: defeated the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, discover 12 uses of dragon blood, fruitful in alchemy with partner Nicole Flamel. Professor Dumbledore is fond of chamber music and bowls. Defeating the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945 is probably the last achievement Loudang wanted. Jerry, who has watched Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, knows that Dumbledore and Grindelwald are lovers who love each other deeply. Turning over the card again, the portrait of Dumbledore on the front has disappeared, probably he went to another card. "Neville, Eat less chocolate frogs from now on. Jerry looked away, looked at Neville who was still trying to remember how many pictures he had collected, and kindly reminded him. Why? Neville looked puzzled. Because eating too much chocolate makes you fat, and you may never collect all the pictures. Jerry glanced at Neville's chubby figure. It's hard to find a girlfriend if you're too fat. By the way, have you decided which college to go to? Seeing Dumbledore's picture, Hermione seemed to think of something, and suddenly became emotional. However, before Jerry and Neville could answer, she immediately murmured like a small machine gun, I'd like to get Gryffindor, they say it's the best, I've heard Dumbledore graduated there himself, but I guess Wenclaw isn't too bad. Well, it turns out that what she said was actually a question sentence. After Hermione babbled about science, Neville finally mustered up the courage to raise his hand, I hope it's a Gryffindor too, because Grandma said my parents were both Gryffindors. Jerry, what about you, which college do you want? After listening to Neville's answer, Hermione immediately nodded in agreement, and then turned her gaze to Jerry. Jerry hesitated for a moment, and finally replied with a smile, that must be Gryffindor. After thinking for so long, Jerry has gradually made a decision in his heart about the branch. Originally, he thought that it would be best to pull Wenclaw or Hufflepuff, so that he could learn magic and improve himself quietly without any danger. But after thinking about it, he is so lacking in little red stars, and since he can earn little red stars in the small world, it seems good for him to join the reckless academy that likes to make trouble. And the Dean of Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall, although he is a bit more serious, is also quite nice, and his impression of him last time was also very good. As long as he makes good use of the refreshing function in the later stage, his academic performance will naturally not be bad, and he may be able to ask Professor McGonagall to start a small problem. Just like in the 3rd grade, Professor McGonagall applied for the time turner for Hermione to assist her learning. The point is, he wants to get a good broomstick before his next comeback. Without a suitable means of transportation, his efficiency in earning little red stars in the Marvel world is too low. And if he joins Gryffindor, he will be able to intercept the memory ball before Harry according to the original plot, and show off a wave of gorgeous operations in front of Professor McGonagall. In this way, Professor McGonagall will break the rules and let him enter the Gryffindor team, and give him a Nimbus 2000 out of his own pocket. In this way, the fastest broomstick in the world is now available for free. As for whether his level of flying broomstick will be bad, there is no need to worry about it at all. What is the test of a Quidditch game? Is it the level of magic in the body? Is it the ability to use magic? Of course not, otherwise, Harry, who just entered school and doesn't know any magic, how could he be valued as an exceptional admission? What the Quidditch game really tests is the coordination of the limbs and the ability to respond to the body. So physical fitness and keen 5 senses are the most important. In fact, in the same way, a wizard who is good at fighting also needs not only good magic ability, but also certain talents in physical fitness, reaction ability, and other aspects. Just like in terms of learning ability, in terms of the use and understanding of magic, Hermione beat Harry by a few blocks. But in terms of combat, Harry's actual combat ability is much stronger than Hermione's. So Harry got an exception to join the Quidditch team as soon as school started, but Hermione's broomstick lessons were not very satisfactory. Physical fitness and keen 5 senses are Jerry's strengths. As long as he can control the broomstick to take off, the Superman state is turned on, and the 5 senses and body reach the limit in an instant, let alone the talented Harry, even the top Quidditch players, Jerry has the confidence to completely abuse each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 28 The Lost Raffle. And when he gets the Nimbus 2000 for free, he can directly help Gryffindor win the Quidditch trophy in the first year, fulfilling Professor McGonagall's wish to defeat Slytherin in the Quidditch match. You must know that according to the original book, the Gryffindor team didn't really get the Quidditch trophy until Harry was in his 3rd year. In the first year, Harry was in a coma in the school hospital for preventing Voldemort from stealing the Philosopher's Stone, and missed the game against La Wenclaw, which led to the final disastrous defeat of the Gryffindor team. In the 2nd grade, because the Chamber of Secrets was opened, the Quidditch competition was cancelled directly. It wasn't until the 3rd year that the Gryffindor team really beat the other 3 colleges and won Hogwarts' rare Quidditch Cup. So after some final thinking, he felt that joining Gryffindor Academy would be in his best interest right now. At the sorting ceremony tonight, choose Gryffindor. Hearing that Jerry had the same heart for Gryffindor, Hermione had a happy smile on her face. For Jerry, who is such a rare and very close friend, she should hope that she can study in the same college. Ah, Lefou, where have you been, Lefou? My Lefou is gone again. At this moment, Neville on the opposite side suddenly burst into screams, scaring Hermione into a wit. Neville, what's the matter, Leaf, what's wrong with you? Seeing Neville lying on the ground crying and looking around for something, Hermione hurriedly got up and asked. Neville searched around in the box, and finally sat on the ground weakly and sobbed. My raffle is the toad that my uncle bought me as a reward for being able to go to Hogwarts. It always wanted to escape from me, and now it's gone again. Neville, cheer up. Jerry and I will get you back. Although Hermione was a bit arrogant, she was actually a very warm-hearted and kind girl. Seeing Neville crying sadly, she immediately pulled Jerry to encourage her. Neville, don't worry, the train is only this big, and your raffle can't fly, so he can't escape the train. He must be hiding in some box near here. Let's ask one by one, and we'll find it soon. Jerry knew that Neville's toad couldn't be lost, but since Hermione had spoken, he could only shrug his shoulders to comfort her. Hearing the comfort of the two, Neville finally stopped sobbing and stood up from the ground. It's almost time to get to the station, let's change into school uniforms and go out to find Rafe. Looking out the car window at the fields and the fading sky, Jerry took his and Hermione's large suitcases off the shelf. After a while, the three put on new Hogwarts robes and walked out of the box. Jerry, look over there, I'll take Neville and look here. In the aisle, Hermione said hello to Jerry, and then led Neville to ask one box after another on the right. And Jerry had no choice but to turn around and start looking to the left. Just think of it as earning a little red star as a subsidy. This kind of work of helping others find lost items can also earn little red stars, but it is relatively small, usually 1 or 2. This little thing is really hard to find. 20 minutes later, Jerry checked all the boxes on the left, but he still couldn't find the missing Leaf. However, this trip he saw many little wizards with familiar names. For example, George and Fred, who look exactly the same, even their mother Mrs. Molly can't tell them apart, are said to have troll blood, Marcus Flinty, the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team, and so on. Crookshanks. Returning to the box he was in, Jerry just opened the door when he saw Crookshanks' beating rifle. It turned out that when the three of Jerry went out from one box to another to inquire about the whereabouts of Leif, the clever Crookshanks also helped, and soon found Leif in a hidden corner of the train. In the box at this time, Crookshanks just knocked Leif back to the original place with his claws when he jumped up to prevent Leif from escaping again. Wingardim Leviosa. The wand pointed at Lefu who kept trying to jump up and escape, and a levitation spell floated him in the air. Jerry picked up Crookshanks, licked it twice, and took out some of the small dried fish that he had brought out from the orphanage before, and fed it to him as a reward. Let me take you to Neville, he is in a hurry. After lifting the levitation spell, Jerry grabbed Lev, left the box again, and walked towards the direction where Hermione and Neville had just left on the right side of the train. Perhaps because he heard that he was going to find Neville, Raffles' 4 frog legs suddenly kicked around and struggled violently in Jerry's hands. Seeing this, Jerry frowned, stopped and lifted Raffle, narrowed his eyes, and said murderously, braised toad, dry pot toad, garlic toad, flavored toad, boiled toad. I like to eat toad meat the most, and then make various medicinal materials from the peeled toad skin. Raffles' frog body shook, and immediately retracted the 4 frog legs and put them under the stomach, and began to tremble. Seeing that Rafe was no longer struggling, Jerry nodded in satisfaction and continued to look for Neville and Hermione. What he said just now was just to frighten Lefou. Lefou's appearance is the same as the toad that was common in the fields of his hometown in the previous life. Who would eat a pimple-covered toad? However, if it is replaced by a bullfrog, then he will have to think about it. After all, bullfrogs are really fragrant. Neville, your life. After walking through 2 carriages, Jerry quickly saw Neville and Hermione walking back, so he waved to Neville with Lef's frog legs. Thank you Merlin, thank you Jerry, my raffle. Seeing Rafe, Neville immediately stretched out his arms and ran towards Jerry in ecstasy. You have to thank Crookshanks for helping you find Lef. Jerry smiled and handed rifle to Neville. Crookshanks is really capable. At this time Hermione also followed up, and said to Jerry with a little pride, Jerry, who do you think I just saw? Who? Jerry's heart moved, and he already had the answer. Harry Potter, is the boy who survived the catastrophe, the Harry Potter who defeated the Dark Lord at birth. Hermione looked a little agitated. Harry Potter. Jerry pretended to be puzzled. It was mentioned in Modern History of Magic, the rise and fall of dark magic, and important magical events of the 20th century. Oh, I forgot that these are extracurricular books I bought, you haven't read them. Hermione suddenly remembered that Jerry was not from a wizarding family like herself, and hadn't read as many history books about the wizarding world as she had. Let me take you there to get to know each other. Unexpectedly, in the movie, Hermione was quite calm when she met Harry for the first time, but in fact, like other little wizards, she was also a little excited. It seems that Harry Potter's name is indeed very influential in the wizarding world. End of this chapter. Chapter 29. I don't like fighting the least, no problem, I quite like making friends. Jerry didn't refuse. Now that he has decided to go to Gryffindor, it seems like a good choice to make friends with Harry in advance. You know, as the future savior in Dumbledore's eyes, Harry is the most valued by Dumbledore at Hogwarts, and a good relationship with Harry is definitely a plus for Dumbledore. Besides, Hogwarts can only recruit so few students every year, and even fewer students are divided among the 4 houses. Maybe he will be assigned to share a dormitory with Harry at night. Go, he's in the front car. Hermione pulled Jerry and Neville and trotted towards the carriage behind him. However, when they reached the door of Harry's box and were about to open the door, there were sounds of arguing inside. You should be gentle, or you'll go the same way as your parents. They don't know what's good or bad. If you hang out with people like the Weasleys or the Hagrids, you'll be affected. Can you say that again? Oh, you want to fight, don't you? Hermione, who walked in the front, opened the door, and Jerry looked inside. At this time, there were not the 2 people Hermione had just mentioned in the box, but 5 boys confronting each other with swords drawn. One of them, standing by the seat, was a boy with black hair and green eyes, a pair of glasses, and a lightning scar on his forehead, which was obviously Harry. As for the boy standing next to Harry, with the Weasley red hair and blue eyes, it was Ron for sure. Turning to look at the 3 opposite them, a puzzled look flashed across Jerry's face. A young man with pale blonde hair and a pale oval face, followed by 2 stout followers. How could this combination look a bit like the trio of Harry's nemesis Malfoy? However, he didn't remember that there was a little Malfoy trio in the movie who troubled Harry and Ron on the train. What happened? Is it because it's been too long to remember, or because of his appearance, there was a butterfly effect, or, is there some reason he doesn't know? What are you doing? Are you going to fight? You are going to cause trouble before you even get to school. Hermione, who walked in front of the 3 of them, looked at the situation in the box with a serious expression on her face. There are 3 helpers here, do you think it's useful to have more people? Seeing the 3 of Jerry appearing at the door, Malfoy's calm face changed slightly, and he took a step back, putting the tall and strong Goyle and Crabbe in front of him. However, Gore and Crabbe obviously didn't pay attention to the little peas who were a head shorter than them in front of them, and they took a step forward aggressively. One stopped Harry and Ron, and one stopped Hermione, Jerry, and Neville. Seeing the tall Crabbe coming to the door, Hermione's body tensed subconsciously, and Jerry temporarily let go of his doubts when he saw this, and stretched out his hand to pull Hermione behind him. We don't want to fight, but this doesn't seem to be your box. Yes, you are not welcome here, please leave here. On the other side, although Harry was a little afraid of Goyle's big man, he bravely responded loudly when he heard Jerry's words. But we don't want to leave, do we, Goyle, Crabbe? We've eaten up everything we ate, and you seem to have plenty left here, wait until we're done eating. Little Malfoy, who was standing in the middle, pointed at the various snacks scattered on the table in the box, and winked at Goyle and Crabbe. Goyle and Crabbe immediately understood. Goyle pulled the thin Harry away with his left hand, and greedily reached for the snacks on the table with his right hand. And Crabbe raised his hands and slammed towards Jerry, who was standing at the door, as if he wanted to push Jerry, Hermione, and Neville behind him to the ground at the same time. What? What? 2 screams sounded in the box at the same time. Not from Harry and Jerry, though, but from Goyle and Crabbe. It turned out that when Goyle reached out to grab the snacks, Ron's pet Banban, who was hidden in the snacks, jumped out and bit Goyle's finger. On the other side, Jerry saw Crabbe reaching out to push him, with a sneer on his face, and stretched out his hands at the same time. He didn't want to compete in strength with the tall and strong Crabbe, but interlocked his fingers with him, and then when Crabbe was in a daze, his wrist suddenly exerted force, and he fell to his knees on the ground. 10 fingers connected to the heart, Crabbe's 10 fingers were pressed hard by Jerry at the same time. Tears of pain were shed immediately. The body of the wizard is different from that of ordinary people. Missing arms and legs is not a big deal, so Jerry didn't show much mercy when he shot, which made Crabbe cry. "You haven't said clearly yet, don't rush to leave." Seeing that Goyle and Malfoy, who had thrown off Scabbers, wanted to run away from him in a panic, Jerry sneered, first hooked Goyle with his right foot and tripped Goyle to the ground, then freed one hand to use the gold wire-wrapped wrist in the grabbing hand, instantly restraining Malfoy. Thus, such a scene appeared in the box. Jerry interlocked Crabbe's 10 fingers with his left hand, and he fell to his knees in tears. His right hand twisted Malfoy's arm to his back, pressing him so painfully that he couldn't get up, and he knocked out a tooth under his foot. Goyle screamed while clutching his bitten finger. The scene is very impactful. You can see it by carefully looking at the reactions of the other 4 people. Harry next to the seat and Ron, who had picked up Scabbers, swallowed simultaneously, while Hermione and Neville in the aisle even opened their small mouths and stared wide-eyed. Among them, if anyone was the most surprised, it must be Hermione. Because she has been in contact with Jerry the longest, in her eyes, Jerry has always been a very gentleman, polite and gentle boy. Before, if she didn't ask, she was called Ms. Granger. "Jerry, why don't you let them go first, they seem to be in pain." Seeing that the 3 of them seemed to be in tears, Hermione suggested cautiously. "Oh? Really? That's really embarrassing. I seem to be a bit harsher. In fact, I'm the person who doesn't like fighting the least. It's just like you just now, it's difficult for me." Hearing this, Jerry did not refuse Hermione's proposal, but smiled and explained to the little Malfoy trio, and then slowly let go of his hands and feet. Unfortunately, after hearing Jerry's explanation and seeing his smiling face, the little Malfoy trio shuddered at the same time, and retreated to the corner next to the box door in horror. End of this chapter. Chapter 30, Special Way of Making Friends. I stopped you just now, just to tell you that violence can't solve the problem. We can calm down and talk slowly about anything. It is not advisable to use violence to snatch snacks like you just did. If you want to eat snacks, you can politely borrow some from these 2 students. I believe that as long as you have a good attitude, they will refuse. Maybe because he felt that he had just started a little too hard, Jerry coughed and explained again. Then he turned his head to look at Harry and Ron and asked, "2 students, do you think I'm right?" Harry and Ron were taken aback, and immediately nodded their heads like chickens pecking rice. "Look, if you had a better attitude just now, they would be willing to share some snacks with you." Jerry turned his head again to look at the trembling little Merfolk 3 gathered in the corner next to the box door, and then his tone was as gentle as possible. "We are all freshmen this year, and maybe we may be assigned to a college. In this way, we can shake hands together, and we will be good friends in the future." "Why, you don't want to?" After seeing Jerry stretch out his hand, he looked towards him with sharp eyes. The expressions of the little Malfoy trio changed, and they quickly got up and stretched out their right hand to put on the back of Jerry's hand. And Harry and Ron saw Jerry turn his head to look at him, and after looking at each other, they also stepped forward and put their hands on it. "Hermione, you come here too, we will have more atmosphere together." Jerry waved at Hermione and Neville with his free left hand. Hermione dragged the equally confused Neville over slowly, hesitated for a moment, and put her hand on it. "Okay, let's join hands, heart to heart, forget this unpleasantness, learn together, make progress together, and become the best business together." "Oh, no, the best wizard." For a while, I almost yelled out the business slogan of the company in my previous life. Seeing the little Malfoy trio fleeing after shaking hands, Jerry smiled and turned to look at Harry and Ron. "Hello, my name is Jerry Carmen. Harry Potter. Ron Weasley." Although Harry and Ron hadn't reacted enough in their brains, they still responded subconsciously. "The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train, and we will send you to school." At this moment, an announcement suddenly sounded throughout the train. "Nice to meet you, but the station is coming soon, we need to go back to the box to clean up, see you later." Hearing the reminder that he was about to arrive at the station, Jerry waved to the 2, pulled Hermione and Neville to turn around and walked out of the box. "Jerry, thanks for helping us just now." Just when the 3 of them were about to walk out of the box, Harry and Ron, who had reacted, thanked Jerry at the same time. "You're welcome, we are all classmates, and I really like to convince people with virtue." Jerry turned his head and winked at Harry and Ron, then pulled Hermione and Neville and disappeared through the door of the box. Convincing people with virtue. Colons rose above Harry and Ron's heads. Was that just convincing people with virtue? Jerry, are you good at fighting? In the box, Hermione looked at Jerry, who stuffed Crookshanks into the cat cage, and asked curiously. On the surface, Hermione is a person who attaches great importance to the rules, but as a Gryffindor, she is also someone who is willing to break the rules in order to help her friends. It's like she set fire to Professor Snape's clothes, and Harry and Ron went to fetch the Philosopher's Stone, stole Professor Snape's ingredients to make Polyjuice Potion, and so on. So, just now, in order to help Harry and Ron, Jerry took the initiative to teach the behavior of the three groups of young Malfoy, and Hermione actually agreed in her heart. It's just that she was a little curious about why Jerry was so good at fighting. Jerry rolled his eyes, and Hermione, as the next one, and possibly the only one who could communicate with him and promote his progress in magic, he felt that he still needed to establish a relatively good image in front of her. Let's talk about it. Frowning, Jerry pretended to sigh, and explained sadly, actually, I wasn't good at fighting at first, but there's no way, you know, I was born in an orphanage, and the orphanage next. He didn't elaborate. However, the clever Hermione had clearly understood something from Jerry's expression, and there was a look of sympathy in her eyes. Sometimes, no matter how true and detailed the lie is, it may not be as convincing as the other party's own brain. At this moment, in Hermione's mind, there was already a sad story about Jerry being abandoned in an orphanage when he was born, and being bullied constantly as he grew up, so that he developed a fighting ability. It's okay, Jerry, it's going to be fine. Hermione stepped forward and gave Jerry a big hug. Yes, it will get better. Although Jerry didn't know what Hermione had imagined, but judging from the situation, it should be a good thing, so he didn't say anything more. The car has stopped, we can get out of the car. Neville on the side didn't have Hermione's imagination. He was in a state of confusion from the beginning to the end. When he saw the train stop, he reacted and shouted at Hermione and Jerry, who were embracing each other. As the train approached the station, the originally empty aisle was also crowded by the little wizards who came out of the boxes one after another. Jerry, Hermione, and Neville squeezed their way through the crowd with difficulty, and got off the train amidst the crowd. Hogsmeade Station, the bottom station of the Hogwarts Express, is also a very small platform. First-year freshmen. First-year freshmen, come here. Jerry, Hermione, and Neville crowded into the crowd on the platform, and when they didn't know which direction to move, a deafening voice suddenly came from the far left of the platform. Turn around to look, I saw a titan about 3 or 4 meters tall with a big beard, holding a magic lamp and shouting loudly towards the crowd. Then Hagrid. With such a body shape, at Hogwarts, he was also the half-breed titan and wizard, Rubeus Hagrid, known as the Gamekeeper. The three struggled their way through the crowd, and finally stood beside Hagrid along with all the other freshmen. This also included Harry, Ron, and the little Malfoy trio standing away from Jerry. Hagrid smiled and said a few words to Harry alone, and then, carrying a magic lamp, he led all the first-year students along a steep and narrow path to the left of the station. Hermione, if it's hard to walk, you can grab my arm. Seeing that Hermione was not walking smoothly, Jerry offered his arm. Since it was a downhill road, and the road surface was very uneven, the little wizard was also bumping and looking forward to walking. End of this chapter. Chapter 31. Entering Hogwarts Castle for the first time. Turn this corner, and you'll be seeing Hogwarts for the first time soon. After walking for about 20 minutes, Jerry heard Hagrid, the leader in front, turn around and remind them loudly. Sure enough, when they reached the end of the path and made a turn, the dense woods on both sides that originally blocked their sight disappeared. What appeared before their eyes was a huge black lake. On the high hillside at the end of the lake, a majestic medieval castle with a mysterious atmosphere stands there quietly. There are many spears on the castle, and windows flicker under the starry sky. Especially against the backdrop of the Black Lake, the castle looked extraordinarily huge, which made all the little wizards, including Jerry, look amazed. When I watched movies in my previous life, although I felt that Hogwarts Castle was quite spectacular, after all, it was just trapped in a small TV. Just like the universe you see on TV, the planets you see are definitely different from what you feel when you are actually in the universe. To be more popular, looking at the beauties on the paper is completely different from seeing the beauties in real life. Now when Jerry stood by the Black Lake and witnessed the mysterious Hogwarts Castle, he really understood why Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is so famous in the wizarding world. Presumably every wizard who has studied at Hogwarts will never forget the shock when he saw Hogwarts Castle for the first time. No more than 4 people in each boat. At this time, Hagrid pointed to a group of boats with magic lamps moored by the lake, and told the little wizards that they needed to take these boats to cross the Black Lake to Hogwarts. So, the little wizards began to team up and board the boat. There are a lot of small boats, so it is not required that each one is fully loaded, and many little wizards are 2 or 3 together. And Jerry, Hermione, and Neville sat in the same boat naturally. Set off. After all the little wizards successfully formed a team, Hagrid, who was sitting alone on the boat, let out a soft drink. All the small boats carrying the little wizards quickly drifted in the direction of Hogwarts Castle under the impetus of the waves of the Black Lake without any manipulation. It's true that rowing doesn't use oars, it's all about waves. Jerry looked at the boats lined up neatly and advancing automatically, and couldn't help but secretly complained. Jerry, do you know why we took the boat to the castle? At this moment, Hermione, who was sitting beside her, suddenly raised her small chin and asked Jerry. Apparently, Hermione's characteristic of showing off her knowledge had begun to flare up again. People of the same age may be bored by this, but Jerry, as an adult, will only feel that someone gives him popular science knowledge for free. Isn't this a great thing? I really don't know about this. Jerry replied very truthfully. He really didn't know why the little wizards went to Hogwarts by boat, because that's how he acted in the movies, but it seemed to be replaced by a carriage in the next few movies. However, at that time, all his attention in watching movies was on those magical magic, and who would care about the problem of riding in a carriage and boat? Seeing that Jerry was not clear, Hermione regained her spirits and began to explain to Jerry, I saw in a piece of Hogwarts school history that the first-year students take the boat to the castle, which is actually a kind of inheritance ceremony in memory of the founder of the college. You see, the boat has 4 positions, which symbolize the 4 founders of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the route we are moving forward is the route that the 4 founders used to find the location of Hogwarts Castle. It turned out to be like this. I really learned from life to age. After hearing Hermione's explanation, Jerry found that it was true, but what surprised him even more was, how many extracurricular books did Hermione, a little girl, read in a month of summer vacation? It can only be said that she deserves to be Miss Know-It-All, very unattainable. In this way, while listening to Hermione's various science popularizations in his ears, he admired the special scenery of the Black Lake. Jerry crossed the Black Lake in a boat, passed through a dark tunnel under the cliff, gradually slowed down, and stopped at the underground pier of Hogwarts Castle. Okay, everyone follow me, we are going to the gate of the castle soon. Hagrid walked ahead with the magic lamp, and Jerry waited for the little wizards to get off the boat, and they gathered together to follow behind him. After climbing up and down for half an hour along a path paved with gravel and small cobblestones, they finally came to a flat, wet meadow in the shadow of the castle. And in front of them is a huge oak door, which is also the gate of Hogwarts Castle. Hagrid stepped forward and knocked on the door 3 times, and the door opened immediately, and a tall black-haired witch in emerald green robes appeared behind the door with a serious face. It was the one Jerry was familiar with, the Dean of the Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall. Freshman, Professor McGonagall. Thank you, Hagrid. Let me pick you up here. After Jerry heard the conversation between the two, Hagrid left first, and Professor McGonagall led them to move on. After stepping over the steps under the oak door, everyone entered the foyer on the first floor of the castle. Really big. Jerry nodded in agreement when he heard Harry and Ron approaching beside him sigh. Although it's just a hallway, I don't know if it has been enlarged by casting the untraceable stretch curse. It looks unusually spacious, especially the roof, which has a strange illusion that you can't see the end at a glance. The stone walls around the foyer are filled with blazing torches, illuminating the entire foyer brightly. Directly opposite it is a luxurious marble staircase, which should lead to the second floor. The buzzing voices of hundreds of people could be faintly heard from the door on the right side of the foyer. Jerry estimated that it should be the auditorium on the first floor, where the sorting ceremony will be held later. There is a hut on the left side of the foyer. At this time, Professor McGonagall is leading them to step on the blue stone slabs on the ground of the foyer and walk towards that hut. Welcome to Hogwarts. The opening banquet is about to begin, but before you take your seats in the auditorium, you must first. In the hut, Professor McGonagall first greeted the little wizards, and then began to give a general explanation of the sorting ceremony, the 4 colleges, credits, and the college cup that will start soon. However, she did not explain in detail what the sorting ceremony was based on, and the specific process of sorting, because these little wizards would know in a while. After the lecture, she asked the little wizards to tidy up their clothes in the hut, waited for a while for the sorting ceremony, and left temporarily to go to the auditorium. End of this chapter. Chapter 32. So it was the world in the book. Hermione, don't worry, you are so good, there must be no problem with sorting. Jerry looked at Hermione, who had been reciting the 14 spells in the textbook over and over again after Professor McGonagall left, looking very nervous, and comforted her in a low voice helplessly. He knew that the so-called sorting ceremony had nothing to do with magic and spells. It was just wearing a hat, and then the hat would determine which academy you belonged to based on your character and bloodline. If you meet the characteristics of multiple colleges, you can also chat with Mr. Hat and choose one you like. Just like in the movie, Harry fits both Gryffindor and Slytherin, but in the end he chose Gryffindor and was sorted into Gryffindor. However, he couldn't tell Hermione that, after all, he couldn't explain why he knew the details of the sorting ceremony. How are they going to put us in exactly which house? There's got to be a test, I suppose. Fred said it hurt us a lot, but I think he was joking. At this time, the conversation between Harry and Ron on the other side also reached Jerry's ears. He took a closer look. There were more than 40 little wizards in the room, except for some little wizards born in pure-blood families like Malfoy. Most of the other little wizards were as nervous as Hermione. Because most of them shared Hermione's thinking that the sorting ceremony for a while might be decided by testing magic. However, they are not Hermione. Most of the little wizards are actually the same as Harry and Ron. They have not been able to cast a single spell yet. Even children born in pure-blood wizarding families like Malfoy may have been exposed to magic earlier than those born in Muggle families, but in fact their magic level is not much higher than that of young wizards born in Muggle families go. According to a small video that Jerry saw in a certain sound in his previous life, it seems that the magical blood in the little wizard's body will stabilize at the age of 11 before they can learn to cast magic. Moreover, there is no difference in character between children from wizard families and children from ordinary families. Except for Hermione, few children in this age group are interested in calming down and delving into those difficult magical knowledge. Doesn't the broomstick smell good to him? Isn't the magic snack delicious? Isn't he nice to go shopping in Diagon Alley? However, a child born in a wizard family should have a wider range of knowledge. At least the little Maurfu and the others will know what the sorting ceremony is all about. It's just that in their view, the panicked look of those Muggle-born little wizards is also a very good landscape. Why tell them the truth? As for Ron and Neville, who were born in the same wizarding family, Ron is because of George and Fred, who are two inferior brothers. Neville has a bad memory, even if his grandma mentioned it, he may not remember it. Ah! 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 Just when the little wizards were immersed in the tension of the sorting house, a few screams suddenly broke the dull atmosphere in the room. Jerry turned his head to look in the direction of the voice. It turned out that there were more than 20 translucent ghosts that came through the wall, flying around above the heads of the little wizards, and waved to them. Okay, come out, line up and follow me, the sorting ceremony is about to begin. At this time, McGonagall reappeared at the door of the hut, and those floating ghosts also filed into the wall and disappeared. This is really, quite a magical scene. Jerry and the little wizards lined up to follow Professor McGonagall into the luxurious auditorium. Looking at the scene in the auditorium, they couldn't help sighing again in their hearts. Probably because it was an important school opening banquet and sorting ceremony, the auditorium was decorated extravagantly. Tens of thousands of candles cast with the floating spell replaced the magic chandelier floating above the auditorium, illuminating the entire auditorium. On the 4 long tables filled with young wizards in the auditorium, golden plates and silver goblets shone under the candlelight. But what surprised Jerry the most was the ceiling of the auditorium. If you don't observe carefully, you will think that the sky above the auditorium is open, because you can see the bright and beautiful galaxy hanging there when you look up. Stopping under the podium between the long tables of the 4 colleges and the long tables of the teachers, Jerry saw that Professor McGonagall first moved a 4-legged stool and put it on the podium. Then another hat was brought in, patched, worn out, and very dirty. This is the old sorting hat that is the same age as Hogwarts. It seems that the sorting hat was originally an ordinary hat of Godric Gryffindor, the founder of Hogwarts. Later, the 4 founders used magic to infuse it with ideas, and it has the ability to help choose a college according to the characteristics of young wizards. Being able to give independent thought and personality to an inanimate substance, Jerry sometimes really felt that the magic in the world of Harry Potter was very powerful. Its power does not lie in its devastating destructive power, but in its very idealism. Without any scientific basis, it is really magical. You may think I'm not pretty, but don't judge a book by its cover. If you can find a more beautiful hat than mine, I can eat myself up. The hat twisted on the stool, and a wide slit opened, like a mouth, and began to sing loudly its own exclusive song of sorting. What's even more outrageous is that after the hat sang, seeing the thunderous applause of the little wizards below, it stood up very gentlemanly, and bowed very gracefully. Have you ever seen a hat bow to you? Certainly not. Jerry saw it for the first time, and he didn't seem to see the scene when he watched a movie in his previous life. Whoever's name I call now, put on the hat, sit on the stool, and wait for the sorting. Professor McGonagall took a few steps forward with the parchment, slowly opened it and said, Hannah Abbott. A rosy-cheeked little girl with 2 golden braids stumbled out of the queue. Steal Hannah. Looking at the little girl with the sorting hat sitting on the 4-legged stool, Jerry finally knew what was wrong with him all the time. It turns out that this is not the Harry Potter world of the movie, but the Harry Potter world of the book. Because he remembered clearly that in the movie, Hermione Granger was the first to be sorted, and Hannah Abbott was the first to be sorted in the book. In his previous life, he had seen the stalk of iron struck Hannah in many small videos. But the key point is that he only watched those movies on TV in his previous life, and he didn't specifically look for the original book to read. The difference between this movie and the original book shouldn't be that big. Maybe. End of this chapter. Chapter 33 The Accident at the Sorting Ceremony. Hufflepuff. The hat only stayed on the head of the little girl named Hannah for a moment, and then quickly gave the result of the sorting. At this time, among the 4 long tables, the little wizards on the rightmost long table immediately stood up and applauded, welcoming the little girl named Hannah to join Hufflepuff. Susan Bones. Hufflepuff. Terry Boot. La Wen Crow. Hermione Granger. After the sorting hat sorted out 7 or 8 little wizards quickly or slowly, Hermione's name was finally called out by the sorting hat. Come on! With Jerry cheering, Hermione ran all the way to the podium. Gryffindor. The sorting hat hesitated, but seemed to sense something, and finally called out Gryffindor. And Hermione happily ran to the long Gryffindor table on the far left, which was filled with applause and laughter. Jerry Carmen. As soon as Hermione finished her assignment, Professor McGonagall's name came out of Jerry's mouth. After straightening his wizard robes, he walked to the podium with unhurried steps, picked up the sorting hat and put it on his head. I want to share just like Harry in the movie. Jerry proposed to the sorting hat that he wanted to be assigned to Gryffindor, but the moment the sorting hat touched his hair, it directly reported the sorting result, Slytherin. Slytherin? Walter, Falker. Hearing the results reported by the sorting hat, Jerry felt like 10,000 horses galloped past in his heart. He only felt that all the plans he had thought up before were completely shattered after the sound of the sorting hat. Stiffly taking off the sorting hat, looking at Professor McGonagall's expression full of regret, Jerry walked helplessly towards the long table of Slytherin in the second row on the right. On the other side of the Gryffindor table, Hermione also had a disappointed look on her face when she saw that Jerry was assigned to Slater. She really wanted to be in Gryffindor with Jerry, but she didn't expect that this rare and special friend would be sorted into Slytherin by the sorting hat. But she still suppressed her disappointment and waved to Jerry over there. Because she knew that Jerry actually wanted to be assigned to Gryffindor, but now he is assigned to Slytherin, and he must be very sad. Look, you can tell a thing or two from his stiff expression just now. How could Jerry be assigned to Slytherin, wizards who have turned bad, but there is no one who is not from Slytherin. In the team, Ron, who hadn't been sorted yet, saw Jerry being sorted into Slytherin, and said to Harry beside him in disbelief. Jerry is not a bad guy, don't forget, he helped us teach that Malfoy guy a lesson on the train. Although Harry didn't have a good impression of Slytherin because of Ron's indoctrination, it didn't prevent him from being very grateful to Jerry for his righteous act on the train. So even if Jerry was assigned to Slytherin, he still felt that Jerry couldn't be a bad guy. Oh, I know, I don't think Jerry is a bad guy, I just think that the sorting hat seems to be in the wrong place, and Jerry should be sorted into Gryffindor. Ron shrugged. At this moment, the little Malfoy on the podium was also sorted into Slytherin by the sorting hat. Seeing this, Harry couldn't help but nodded. Slytherin should be suitable for a guy like Malfoy. Why Slytherin? It's not scientific. Jerry, who was sitting on the long Slytherin table, didn't have the mood to watch the sorting ceremony at this moment, but frowned and began to think about why he was instantly identified as a Slytherin by the sorting hat. Thinking carefully about the various remarks about Slater, he gradually had a little understanding in his heart. The most basic condition to enter Slytherin, then, must be pure blood or mixed blood, that is, either both parents are wizards, or at least one of them must be a wizard. Like a little wizard whose parents are muggles, such as Hermione, no matter how good he is, it is absolutely impossible to be assigned to Slytherin. Then look at Jerry. Who are Jerry's parents in this world? That doesn't exist at all. His body is a strange panel, brought from the main world of Marvel, and the blood of the wizard in his body is also exchanged with the little red star. So Jerry guessed that the wizard blood he exchanged with the little red star might be the purest and oldest wizard blood. After all, the strange panel was able to bring him from the Marvel world to the Harry Potter world, and the wizard's blood that was unreasonably exchanged was still a mess. It's not that mixed blood is bad, but he personally thinks that pure blood wizard blood should have a higher upper limit of growth than mixed blood wizard blood. For example, the magic power will be more than that of peers. Because the top Dumbledore and Greenwald seem to be pure blood. Of course, the strength of strength mainly depends on the understanding and application of magic. Those slight advantages of magic power are nothing. Voldemort, Snape, and Professor McGonagall were all born of mixed blood, but they were still very powerful, especially Voldemort, who was second only to Dumbledore and Grindelwald. In fact, people like Hermione can be considered mixed blood, but the concentration may not be so high. For wizards born in Muggle families, Jerry felt that one of the ancestors of both parents must have had wizards, but the wizard blood of the descendants had not awakened. From the perspective of personality, Slytherin's wizard characteristics, in the eyes of outsiders, are arrogant, very ambitious, scheming, and like to fight for power and profit. These, Jerry felt that he did not meet. But he thought about it carefully, and it seemed that interpreting Slytherin like that was too one-sided. Perhaps a comment about Slytherin that he accidentally saw on the internet was more suitable for his current situation. It was mentioned in that comment that the one who can really represent Slytherin should be Professor Slughorn, who appeared in the 6th grade. Pursue fame and fortune, like to accept celebrities as students, but will not take the initiative to hurt others. Forming a slug club is also a mutual benefit with outstanding students to achieve a win-win situation. Supporting the blood theory, but not a brainless supporter, he also admires the Muggle-born but excellent Hermione and Harry's mother Lily. Very smart, he will judge the situation and ensure that his own interests will not be damaged, but he also has his own bottom line. As a Slytherin in the final battle, he firmly stood on Hogwarts' side. Therefore, Slytherin should be an egoist with a bottom line, a selfish person who will not take the initiative to hurt others. If you look at it this way, it seems that there is a point that can match him who has resurrected his life. Pure blood, coupled with the most authentic character in his heart and his current actions with strong purpose. Is it because of this that the Sorting Hat judged him to be a Slytherin? End of this chapter. Chapter 34. Bold and Elegant Jerry Gaw. Now that things are going on, we can only take one step at a time. At present, these analyses are all deduced by Jerry himself based on the results. Whether it is true or not, he is not sure. After all, it stands to reason that the sorting of the Sorting Hat is subjectively based on the innermost thoughts of the little wizard, and he obviously wants to go to Gryffindor. Could it be that it was actually Slytherin that he wanted to go to in the back of his mind? Forget it, there is no need to worry about this now. Since I have been assigned to Slytherin, I can only study magic at Hogwarts as a Slytherin. He looked up at the Professor McGonagall on the podium, who had gotten along well with him before. Looking at the teacher's long table, Professor Snape, who looked gloomy, harsh, indifferent, and mean like a big bat, Jerry couldn't help but sigh again. It's really a plan that can't keep up with the changes. The basket of Gryffindor strategies that he made before was useless now, so he could only use his brain again to replan a Slytherin route. But after thinking about it carefully, becoming a Slytherin wasn't a bad thing at all. At least Snape, while harsh and mean to the wizards of other houses, especially Gryffindor, was very friendly to the young wizards of his own house. Besides, Snape was proficient in all kinds of black magic. If he could get on good terms with him, he might have the opportunity to learn a lot of more lethal black magic. Harry Potter. Gryffindor. At this moment, the well-known and much anticipated Harry also communicated with the Sorting Hat for a while, and was assigned to Gryffindor as fate. At this point, the sorting ceremony officially ended. Student Della, I didn't expect you to be assigned to Slytherin, we are really destined. Jerry, who came back to his senses, looked at the little Malfoy trio who were sitting far away from him. With a move in his eyes, he immediately walked over and squeezed in between them, and then enthusiastically put his arms on their shoulders. Superior. Yes, Fate. Of course I'm a Slytherin, how can you be a Slytherin? Little Malfoy's body froze suddenly, his face convulsed and forced a smile. Just when he saw Jerry being assigned to Slytherin, he almost swears on the spot. He couldn't figure out why a rude man like Jerry could be assigned to a noble and elegant Slytherin. However, in view of the fighting skills on the other side's train that used 1vs3 to torture them, after the sorting ended, he still held back his anger and took Goyle and Crabbe to sit away from Jerry. 10 years is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Fighting with his body is not the behavior that an elegant Slytherin wizard should have. After he has learned magic well, he must let the other party know what the price will be if he angers a noble Malfoy. Delicate, you seem to have a good relationship. At this time, the short-haired little witch sitting opposite Malfoy looked at Jerry and Malfoy hugging each other with a surprised expression. That is, I met Delacour, Goyle, and Crabbe on the train, and we became good friends at that time, don't you think? Jerry squinted, and put a little effort into Malfoy's and Goyle's arms. As if recalling some bad memories, the three of them shook their bodies at the same time, and then nodded reluctantly. Hi, my name is Jerry Carmen. Pansy Parkinson. Jerry took his right hand off Goyle's shoulder and reached for Pansy. Pansy froze for a moment, but still reached out and shook Jerry lightly. With Malfoy's arrogance, the friends he would like to make must be excellent pure-blood family wizards, but, Jerry Carmen, why hasn't he heard of this name before? The dinner party begins. At this moment, the headmaster Dumbledore, who was sitting in the middle of the teachers' long table, slowly got up and announced loudly. As Dumbledore's voice fell, Jerry found that all kinds of steaming and fragrant delicacies appeared on the empty gold plates in front of him: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steaks. The silver goblet is also filled with different types of beverages such as fruit juice and milk. This culinary magic, it seems that I will spend time learning it in the future. Seeing these delicacies that suddenly appeared, Jerry's eyes lit up, and he immediately decided to add cooking magic to his magic learning plan. After learning cooking magic, when he returns to the main world, he can greatly reduce the time he spends cooking every day. By the way, there are also those magics that can take care of housework, and they can't be left behind. Planning all kinds of magic that he would learn in the future, Jerry didn't stop his body movements. Like other hungry little wizards, his stomach was already growling. He didn't know if it was because he was too hungry, or because the house elf's cooking magic was really good. He felt that the delicacies on the table were particularly delicious today. Pansy, long time no see, you cut your hair short while Jerry was eating. Malfoy pretended to talk to Pansy, and quietly moved his position. Delicate, you actually noticed it, does it look good? Pansy blushed slightly. It's pretty good. With a glance, Jerry saw little Malfoy walking away from him, smiled to himself and didn't stop him. The effect he wanted had already been achieved, and it didn't matter whether Malfoy sat next to him or not. What? Just when a piece of steak was cut in half, Jerry suddenly heard the screams of the little wizards. Looking up, he found that several young wizards in the same grade as Malfoy were all looking at him in horror. Turning his head in doubt, he saw a haggard, hollow-eyed, scary-looking ghost, wearing a silver blood-stained robe, sitting next to him at some point. Hello, I'm Jerry Kamen, a freshman in Slytherin. Jerry smiled, gracefully put down the knife and fork in his hand, and nodded slightly to the ghost next to him in greeting. The ghost turned its head and glanced at Jerry with some surprise. It was the first time he met a freshman who was not afraid of himself. There was a hint of appreciation on his terrifying face. Barrow, or you can call me Bloody Barrow like other ghosts, I am the ghost of Slytherin, you are welcome to join Slytherin. Thanks. After a brief chat, Jerry continued to eat the steak calmly. As an adult, especially if he has experienced life and death, and his subordinates have had human lives, he will not be frightened by a ghost. Seeing that Jerry was not afraid at all, and chatting with the terrifying ghost so elegantly and calmly, most of Slater Linyi's first graders, including some second-year little wizards, showed admiration. End of this chapter. Chapter 35. The Slytherin Common Room. Among all the ghosts at Hogwarts, Bloody Barrow is the ghost that all young wizards are afraid of. Even some less courageous wizards will be scared to cry by his terrifying expression when they meet Bloody Barrow alone. And Bloody Barrow is also the most powerful ghost among Hogwarts ghosts. Even the fearless prank elf Peeves dare not disobey the order of Bloody Barrow. At this time, a blonde little witch sitting opposite Gore and Crab looked at Jerry, who was eating steak elegantly at this time, touched another very strong little witch next to her and said in a low voice, "Millicent, do you think he looks so handsome?" "Daphne, I still think Goyle is more handsome." The burly Millicent turned his head to look at Jerry, then looked at Goyle opposite him and replied, "The little blonde witch." In this way, after the brief turmoil of the ghosts, the dinner entered into a warm atmosphere again. Everyone ate delicious food, drank drinks, introduced themselves, and communicated with each other. Different from those on the next table, those Muggle-born little wizards talked about their various wonderful experiences after receiving the admission letter from Hogwarts. Most of the chat content of the Little Slytherin Wizards Where Jerry Belongs is related to topics that can highlight their identities, such as the wealth of their families and the social status of their parents. Among them, the family with the highest status is obviously Malfoy's family, one of the ancient 28 sacred families. Malfoy is also the school director of Hogwarts, and has close relations with high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic. And the richest is a boy named Blaise Chibonai. His mother, Madame Zabonai, was a beautiful, famous witch who had 7 husbands. Because each husband will leave a large inheritance to the mother and son when he dies, the family is even richer than the Malfoy family. When the dinner came to an end, Dumbledore got up again and warned all the little wizards a few precautions for the start of school. Jerry summed it up: the main thing is to prohibit going to the dangerous Forbidden Forest, and not to cast magic in the corridor between classes. Those who are above the 2nd grade who volunteer to participate in the Quidditch selection can find Ms. Hooch to sign up in the 2nd week. And most importantly, no one is allowed to go to the right corridor on the 4th floor. After talking about the precautions, it is time to sing the school song. With a wave of Dumbledore's wand, a long golden ribbon appeared out of nowhere, and then twisted and coiled high like a snake to form lines of the school song. When the school song ended, the opening dinner officially ended. "All first-year freshmen follow me. I am your prefect, Gemma Farley, and I will take you to the lounge." When the dinner was over, on the long Slytherin table, a girl about 14 or 15 years old stood up in a robe and called out to the somewhat dazed Slytherin freshmen. Hearing this, the little wizards immediately gathered around the girl, followed her through the crowd, and walked towards the Slytherin lounge. "Hey, isn't the Slytherin lounge above the castle?" Jerry mixed in with the little wizards. Seeing the prefect named Gemma lead them towards the basement, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised inwardly. He remembered that in the movie, Harry and the others seemed to walk up some automatically moving stairs, and then entered the lounge through the portrait of the fat lady. Gryffindor's and Ravenclaw's lounges are in the 8th tower, and Hufflepuff's and our Slytherin's lounges are in the basement, but I can tell you that our Slytherin's lounges are definitely the best, and you'll find out in a while already. At this time, Gemma, who was the leader explaining some school precautions, happened to talk about the location of the lounge, which solved Jerry's doubts. Entering the dungeon on the right side of the grand marble staircase in the foyer, through a maze of dark corridors, Jerry soon saw a stone wall. "Noble." Following Gemma, the leader, said a password to the stone wall. A stone door immediately appeared on the originally empty and wet stone wall, and opened slowly. The only way to enter the common room is through the password, which will be changed every 2 weeks, and the new password will be notified in advance on the bulletin board in the lounge. Remember, the password for these 2 weeks is, "Noble." Gemma explained to the little wizards with a somewhat haughty and proud tone. The little wizards also nodded proudly. Obviously, they recognized Slytherin's password very much. As expected of a Slytherin. Jerry looked at everyone with their chins raised, showing a coquettish expression. For some reason, he felt that these little wizards of Slater looked quite cute. Following the little wizards into the common room, the first thing that catches the eye is the chained magic lamps glowing green, and the decorations made of animal skulls hanging on the wall. His first impression was, so green. What kind of weird aesthetic is this Slytherin? But it's not without advantages. At least the fireplace, sofa, tables and chairs in the Slytherin common room look very delicate, and there are all kinds of beautiful carvings on them. And there is a medieval tapestry hanging on the wall opposite the fireplace, which depicts the famous adventures of the Slytherin people at that time, which is also very interesting to look at. Of course, what interests Jerry the most is the large window that occupies 2/3 of the wall opposite the stone door in the common room. Looking out from the big window, he could directly see the bottom of the Black Lake, huge squid and various creatures in the lake, swimming leisurely through the window, giving him the illusion of going to the aquarium in his previous life. It turned out that Slytherin's common room was built under the Black Lake, and magical magic was used to isolate the infiltration of the lake water. Let the Slytherins who live here feel the mystery of a shipwreck underwater at any time. Boys go to the room on the left, girls go to the right. Your schedule should already be in the room. If you have any questions, come to me later. Gemma looked at the little wizards standing in front of the big window, looking at the scenery outside in amazement, and left with a final confession. The view from the window is amazing, but the little wizards were exhausted today, and after a while, they dispersed to find their own rooms. Jerry is no exception. He left the common room earlier than those little wizards, and walked to the boys' dormitory on the left. At the door of every male dormitory, the name of the little wizard living in was posted, so he quickly found his own dormitory. Jerry Carmen, Delacoe Malfoy, Gregory Gower, Vincent Crabbe. Looking at the 4 names posted on the door of the dormitory, Jerry smiled helplessly. These 3 children and I are really destined. End of this chapter. Chapter 36. New plan. Pushing the door open and entering the room, Jerry saw that his luggage had been placed next to the bed closest to the door in advance. The bed was a traditional 4-poster, with green silk hangings and silver thread embroidery on the bedspread. Likewise, the windows in this room were also enchanted, allowing one to see the lake outside and even hear the subtle sound of the water rippling on the lake. It should be very good to fall asleep in the sound of gently fluctuating lake water. No wonder the prefect just said that the lounge in Slytherin was the best among the 4 houses. If the discharge is too green, it is indeed very good. Okay, Crookshanks, don't worry, I'll let you out right away. Seeing Crookshanks meowing at him in the cage on the table beside the bed, Jerry hurriedly raised his hand to appease him, and at the same time stepped forward to open the cage. Because Crookshanks is very smart and can find food by himself, Jerry never locked him in a cage when he was in the orphanage. This is the first time, maybe anxious. Meow. As soon as Jerry opened the cage, Crookshanks immediately let out an excited meow, and then turned into a flash of yellow lightning, and quickly rushed towards the window of the room. Crookshanks, stop! With a twitch in his heart, Jerry immediately realized what was happening, and hurriedly yelled at Crookshanks. However, it was too late. I saw Crookshanks looking out of the window, all kinds of big and small fish swimming around, with excitement in their eyes, and then they bumped into the invisible magic barrier in the middle of the window. It's like bumping your head against a layer of transparent glass. Puff! Crookshanks slid down from the barrier, and the already flat pie face seemed to become even flatter. Oh, silly cat, I take back what I just said about you being smart. Seeing this, Jerry covered his forehead in both amused and helpless ways. However, as a cat with the blood of Malizi, Crookshanks' body is much stronger than that of ordinary cats. This impact is obviously nothing to it. It stood up again in a little confusion, then lay on the window, scratched the invisible magic barrier with its paws, tilted its head and looked at the fish swimming outside, and seemed to start to doubt the cat's life. Seeing this, Jerry didn't care about it anymore, but started to pack his luggage and picked up the class schedule on the table. And at this time, there were a few familiar shouts and curses from the door of the room, and it was the little Malfoy trio who saw Jerry's name at the door. Hello! Seeing the young Malfoy trio entering through the door, Jerry greeted them friendly. Since they are both Slytherins and live in the same room, he still feels that the relationship between the young Malfoy trio can be eased a little. After all, although the young Malfoy and the other 3 were somewhat villainous, they were not heinous people. Let me tell you, I'm not afraid of you. My father is the director of Hogwarts. If you dare to do anything to me again, I will let my father expel you. And wizards should use magic to duel. After learning magic well, we should use magic to have a fair duel. Little Malfoy had obviously made a decision outside. After pushing the door and entering the room, he immediately took Goyle and Crabbe to stand 5 meters away from Jerry, and said loudly in a vicious tone. No problem, really, I don't like to use violence. As long as you don't take the initiative to provoke me, I won't do anything to you. Jerry shrugged and agreed without hesitation. Seeing this, the 3 of Malfoy finally breathed a sigh of relief. Don't look at the 3 of them arrogantly in front of other little wizards, especially Muggle little wizards, looking like I am invincible. In fact, it was just 3 11-year-old children. After the train was repaired and threatened by Jerry, I have left some shadows in my heart. From the original book, the trio of Malfoy were in the train, only to be bitten by Ron's mouse, and then ran away in a panic, which shows that they are not as courageous as they appear on the outside. After formally reaching an agreement to live in peace, the little Malfoy trio were no longer as afraid of Jerry as before, but began to pack their own luggage and beds. At night, when the trio of little pony Fu fell into a deep sleep, Jerry got up quietly and left the room with the magic book. Unlike other little wizards who were exhausted after this day, with his physical fitness, he didn't expend too much energy this day at all. It's just that the accident of being assigned to Slytherin really caught him off guard. Therefore, everything that was planned before has to be overthrown and restarted now. Unlike Gryffindor, in the Slytherin Academy, if he wanted to gain the greatest possible benefits, then he had to be excellent, excellent in all aspects, and crushingly excellent. Just like Lao Fu when he was young. Lao Fu was also born in a Muggle orphanage and was of mixed blood, but he was able to thrive in Slytherin, where family background and blood were paramount, and he became an idol worshipped by all Slytherins. It's because he's so good. When he was in Hogwarts, Voldemort was born in poverty but was extremely smart. His parents died but he was wise and courageous. He was the school's prefect, school grass, male god, and model student. He seemed polite, quiet, and voracious for knowledge. Almost everyone has a good impression of him. Especially Slughorn, the dean of Slytherin at the time, loved him so much that he even told him about the forbidden Horcruxes he asked about. Jerry wants to learn as much magic as possible at Hogwarts, so Lao Fu is his role model. However, if he is based on his own learning ability, he will definitely not be able to do it. Let alone topping the entire grade, it is not bad to be ranked in the middle level. Therefore, he plans to change his strategy and use a lot of little red stars to speed up the progress of learning. His original plan was to use Little Red Star as much as possible to maintain the time in the wizarding world and to use it when learning some important spells. After all, history of magic, astronomy, and herbalism are not urgently needed, and they can be made up for later when you earn more Little Red Stars. And every time he returns, he can only re-enter after the main world cools down for a month. Now, if he wants to learn from Lao Fu, he must use a lot of Little Red Stars, strive to surpass everyone in every subject, and become the best student, so that he can gain a foothold in Slytherin. Mainly, he had nothing to do with Snape. If he wasn't good enough, he wouldn't be in Snape's eyes. Came to the common room of Slytherin, under the green light of the lounge, Jerry sat on the sofa, turned on the refreshing function, opened the magic book, and began to memorize the history of magic that will be presented tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 37. According to the timetable, Slytherin had only one class on the first day, and that was History of Magic, which was held in the afternoon with the students of Raw and Claw. The teacher is the ghost Cuthbert Binns, and the place is on the second floor. At noon the next day, after having lunch in the auditorium on the first floor, Jerry, together with other young Slytherin wizards, walked along the luxurious marble staircase to the History of Magic classroom on the second floor. During the meal, Jerry also met Hermione, who was assigned to Gryffindor. Hermione expressed regret that Jerry was not assigned to Gryffindor, but she said that Jerry was still her best friend even in Slytherin. In class, Cuthbert Binns, a ghost who looks very old, is talking about the history of magic in his wheezing, dragging voice. And in the classroom, most of the Slytherins and Wenkila's little wizards were already crumbling under the hypnotic voice of Cuthbert Binns. However, there was a young wizard who was quite different from the others. He sat in the first row with a straight back and piercing eyes. The hypnotic voice of Cuthbert Binns didn't seem to have any influence on him. He is Jerry, who turns on refreshing intermittently. A History of Magic session lasted for 2 to 3 hours, and Jerry couldn't keep turning on refresh because it would be too heavy a burden on the brain. So some textbooks have content, he turns off refreshing, and when Cuthbert Binns extends to some additional content, he turns on refreshing memory comprehension. In fact, the History of Magic class is not as useless as other little wizards said, although it does not teach any magic knowledge or magic spells. But if you study hard, you will find that you can learn a lot of secrets about the wizarding world from these magical histories. Jerry's understanding of the wizarding world is limited to movies and some small videos, which are very one-sided. And Cuthbert Binns' History of Magic class showed the whole wizarding world in front of him in a more realistic and detailed way. This is also very helpful for him to learn magic knowledge in the future. Just like if you want to learn the language, characters, and a lot of their unique knowledge and culture of a completely strange country, it will be very difficult. But when you know all the history of the country, then this learning becomes much less difficult. This may be why all the little wizards feel that History of Magic is the most useless course, but it runs through every grade of the little wizards at Hogwarts. Okay, that's all for today's lesson. Now let's start asking questions. Does anyone know the demon Emmerich that I just talked about? When the get out of class was about to end, Cuthbert Binns began to enter the questioning session as usual. Generally, he would not give any hope for this link, because at this time, most of the young wizards have just woken up, and few of them know the answer. But he didn't mind, because his class had always been like this. Sure enough, the sleepy-eyed little wizards began to look at each other when they heard Cuthbert Binns' question. Just when Cuthbert Binns was about to announce the dismissal of class, Jerry in the front row raised his hand. "What's your name?" "Jerry Carmen." Jerry stood up and replied. "Then it's up to you to answer the question just now." A look of surprise appeared on Cuthbert Binns' aged face. Jerry coughed, and after attracting the attention of all the little wizards, he began to speak. Emmerich the Demon was a short-lived but extremely powerful wizard. He once became the master of the Elder Wand and carried out a reign of terror in southern England in the early Middle Ages. He was in a duel with Egbert the Evil being slaughtered, he once. You see, the Elder Wand was actually mentioned by Cuthbert Binns in his first-year History of Magic class. Very good, 3 points for Slytherin. Cuthbert Binns did not expect that what he said in class would be repeated verbatim by the student, which is very rare. "Mr. Carmen, can you tell us more about Ulrich the Weird?" Ulrich the Odd is a medieval wizard known for his erratic behavior, such as wearing a jellyfish as a hat and sleeping in a room with more than 50 pet birds. He's considered one of the eccentric wizards in history, and as such, he's often the butt of wizarding jokes. Jerry continued to retell the content recorded in class, word for word. "Jerry, you are one of the students with the best memory I have ever seen, 3 more points for Slytherin." As Cuthbert Binns' voice fell, those little Slytherin wizards who were not clear at first applauded happily. The importance of credits was clearly explained by Professor McGonagall when he entered Hogwarts Castle yesterday, and the College Cup obtained through credits is the highest honor for Hogwarts wizards. So proud Slytherins, seeing the first class, Jerry earned 6 credits for Slytherin, how can you not be unhappy? Originally, at the opening dinner yesterday, Jerry was able to negotiate gracefully and calmly with the terrifying Bloodman Barrow, which impressed the first-year Slytherins deeply, and at this time they had a very good impression of him. Except, of course, the little Malfoy trio. Being able to communicate gracefully and calmly with the terrifying Bloodman Baron reflects Jerry's courage, and being able to earn 6 points for Slytherin in the History of Magic reflects Jerry's wisdom. Although the Slytherins are proud, as long as you have no problem with your bloodline, the more outstanding you are, the more they will favor you. As we all know, if they can be assigned to Slytherin in the sorting ceremony, there must be no problem in terms of bloodline. After the end of History of Magic, Jerry clearly felt the pride of the little Slytherin wizards, and began to actively communicate with him. One of them, a little blonde witch named Daphne Greengrass, was the most enthusiastic. The first period in the morning of the second day was Defense Against the Dark Arts class. The teacher was Professor Quirrell, who smelled like garlic and had his hair wrapped like a rice dumpling. He always stuttered in class. But Jerry didn't dare to underestimate Professor Quirrell. Because he knew that Professor Quirrell, who was born in La Wen Kilo, was definitely not weak, otherwise it would be impossible to avoid the defense of Gringotts and sneak in to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Besides, the ultimate villain of the world, Voldemort, is hidden on the back of his head. In fact, despite the cowardly appearance this professor deliberately pretended to be, it is not useless to listen carefully to the content of his lectures. After at least one class, Jerry did have a deeper understanding of the magic in the textbook. End of this chapter. Chapter 38 Hermione's Invitation. The magic spell does not mean that you can exert its greatest power after learning it. Just like an ordinary fire spell, Jerry can only use it to light cigarettes now, but Dumbledore's use can burn thousands of inferi. On the one hand, the magic power in Dumbledore's body is much stronger than that of Jerry, but more importantly, Dumbledore's understanding of the fire curse is beyond the reach of ordinary wizards. Quirrell didn't ask any questions during the entire Defense Against the Dark Arts class, so Jerry naturally didn't have a chance to get credits. But he is not in a hurry. Learning magic to improve his strength is the ultimate goal. Obtaining credits to increase his popularity can be done slowly, and there are plenty of opportunities. In the next few days, Jerry took herbal medicine, astronomy, charms and transfiguration. Since he turns on the refreshing function for a long time every night to quickly memorize and learn magic books, he also turns on the refreshing function periodically during class. Therefore, in the class of herbal medicine, he can always say it accurately at the first time. Professor Sprout asked the name of each herbal medicine and their various properties. In astronomy, he can also easily identify any stars and constellations. And in the spell class, when other little wizards are still learning the theory of spells, he can successfully release the corresponding magic in the textbook. Although the power and effect are not great, he is very skilled in using it. As for the transformation class, when Professor McGonagall ended the lecture, he asked everyone to practice turning a match into a needle. Under Professor McGonagall's exclamation, Jerry completed the exercise in less than 10 seconds and successfully became the first little wizard to turn a match into a silver needle. It is precisely because of this that Jerry took more than 20 credits for Slytherin in 4 days, and initially left a very good impression on all the teachers. He also made a name for himself in various colleges. In particular, Jerry was not like Hermione. With his adult soul, any little wizard who took the initiative to get in touch with him felt that although he was very good, he was not as arrogant and difficult to get along with as ordinary Slytherins. On the contrary, he is very humble and easygoing, and sometimes he will make a joke or two with you. This also made him earn more than 20 credits for Slytherin, but the young wizards in the other 3 academies who had contacted him did not feel too much jealousy towards him, but rather admired him to some extent. Because now, except for a little wizard named Hermione in Gryffindor, no one earns as much credits as Jerry. In this way, the time came to Friday. There is only half a day of classes in the morning on Friday, and it is the potions class taught by Slytherin headmaster Snape. It is also the first time that the 2 colleges, Slytherin and Gryffindor, have classes together. None of the previous lessons, either with Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, were with Gryffindor. The potions classroom was in the basement, very close to the common room where Slater was. Because there is no sunshine all year round, the classroom feels a bit gloomy, especially the glass jars placed along the walls, which are soaked with various animal specimens. "Hey, Jerry, you're here early." "Hermione, you're early too." Jerry has the habit of getting up early, so he finished his breakfast very early and came to the potions classroom. He was the first little wizard to enter the classroom. And Hermione is usually the first one to enter the classroom in each class, so the two happened to run into each other. Since no one else had arrived, the two naturally sat together and chatted. Since the two of them were assigned to different colleges, they didn't usually take classes together, so they didn't have much time to chat except for a few words during meals. The point is, Hermione is a top student, and she studies whenever she has free time. In order to improve his strength, Jerry also absorbs all kinds of magical knowledge non-stop. "Jerry, are you free this weekend? How about we go to the library together?" Hermione looked at Jerry expectantly. She had memorized the first grade textbooks during the summer vacation. After asking the prefect Percy, Hermione knew that Hogwarts also had a library, and there were many magic books in it. "So I wanted to take a look at it when I was free on Friday. Just now I met Jerry who also likes to read, so I sent an invitation to go to the library together." And Jerry's eyes lit up when he heard the word library. In the past 2 days, he was busy memorizing the books History of Magic, 1,000 Miraculous Herbs and Fungi and Magic Potions and Potions, so he really didn't have time to consider going to the Hogwarts library. "Do you know where the library is?" "I've already inquired about it in advance. It's on the 2nd floor of the castle, in the corridor on the far right." Hermione replied immediately. "Okay, let's go there early on Saturday morning." Jerry nodded, accepting Hermione's invitation. While Jerry was chatting with Hermione, Slytherin and the little wizards of Gryffindor also walked into the potions class one after another. Among them, Harry and Ron sat on the other side of Hermione, and also participated in the chat between the two. At this time, the chat also shifted from magical knowledge to the magical experiences they had seen at Hogwarts these days. However, the two obviously disliked some of Hermione's showing off and preaching from time to time, especially Hermione also mentioned the scandal of the two being reprimanded by Professor McGonagall for being late to the Transfiguration class. They were more interested in what Jerry had mentioned, about the large windows in the Slytherin common room that looked out over the lake. "Jerry, as a Slater, I must remind you that it is not a good thing to be in contact with some impure blood and traitors, and you will be affected." At this time, a haughty and slightly sour voice suddenly rang in Jerry's ears. Jerry turned his head to look. It turned out to be Daphne, the little blonde witch of Slytherin, sitting next to her with her best friend Millicent. Daphne was attracted by the handsome Jerry at the school opening dinner, who didn't change his face when facing the bloody barrow, and later Jerry's excellent performance in various disciplines. It also satisfied all the fantasies she should have about a real Slytherin. It's a pity that Jerry seems to like to be alone. Occasionally, when she comes up to talk to her, the other party will show a charming smile and chat with her for a few words, but the chat ends because she wants to read a book. Although Jerry read a book quietly in the common room, she felt pretty good. But when she entered the classroom just now, she saw Jerry chatting happily with the little wizards of Gryffindor, and she immediately felt unhappy. There are 3 Gryffindors, one is a lowly mudblood, one is Weasley who betrayed his blood and joined Gryffindor, and the other is Harry Potter who should have entered Slytherin but went to Gryffindor. End of this chapter. Chapter 39 Madame Charm forward. Hearing what Daphne said next to him, Jerry was also taken aback. But he didn't think there was anything wrong with Daphne. After all, as a Slytherin, it seemed normal for Daphne to have such thoughts. Because of the education and environment she received since she was a child. But Jerry wasn't a normal Slytherin, and he didn't have the rotten ideas of a Slytherin. The strength of a person has nothing to do with the purity of blood, the most important thing is his own strength. External things are only external after all, as long as you are strong enough, then you are the one who makes the rules. Classmate Daphne, no one can influence me. I, Jerry Carmen, as a Slytherin, will definitely become the most powerful wizard in this world. Jerry looked at Daphne firmly, exuding a breathtaking aura all over his body. Daphne was taken aback when she saw this, the dissatisfaction in her eyes just now disappeared, and all that was left was full of admiration. Madame Charm, he too, it should be that this line is really good enough, but children really like it. As a Slater, if he refuted Daphne's words at this time, saying that the pure blood theory is incorrect, blah, 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 blah. But if he were to draw a clear line with Hermione and others now, it would not be in his heart, and now the entire academy, it is true that Hermione can keep up with his progress, communicate with him and make progress together. Besides, a good relationship with Harry will most likely have many positive effects on Dumbledore's side. You see, such a good Slytherin, who has no blood prejudice, is willing to be friends with Gryffindor, a little muggle-born wizard. Not exactly what Dumbledore wanted to see. Otherwise, in case Dumbledore treated him like a second Voldemort, it would be a little bad. Jerry, the best wizard is not necessarily you, but also me. At this moment, Hermione replied somewhat unconvinced. And Harry and Ron next to Hermione looked at Jerry with a look of admiration. Humph, how can you compare with Jerry? Daphne at the side immediately mocked Hermione. At this moment, the entire potions classroom suddenly fell silent, as quiet as a needle could be heard. It turned out that Professor Snape, who was dressed in a black wizard robe and had an expression that could scare a 3-year-old into tears, had already appeared at the door of the potions classroom. Which professor in Hogwarts scares little wizards the most? Not the most powerful Dumbledore, known as the greatest wizard, nor the most serious and strict Professor McGonagall in the school. Instead, he is expressionless all day long, looking very gloomy, as if whenever he gets angry, he will give you the most terrifying and evil black magic Professor Snape. Even the young wizards of Slytherin were terrified when they saw their headmaster. Snape held his wand in one hand and the potions textbook in the other, striding up to the podium like a giant bat. Like other professors, he first took out the roster. But when he clicked on Harry, he suddenly paused, then raised his head and gave Harry a sharp look, and mocked in a low voice, "Harry Potter, this is our new arrival, a famous character." The little Malfoy trio sitting in the back laughed while covering their mouths. After speaking, Snape continued to roll the roll. When he clicked on Jerry Carmen, he paused again, with a little appreciation in his tone, "It's excellent. Compared with some people who have no real name, they have obtained more than 20 credits at the beginning of the school. This is called excellent." Polaris, Snape really hates Harry, or rather prefers Slater's students. Jerry groaned inwardly. You know, the credits that Hermione has earned these days are not much less than him, but Hermione is earning credits for Gryffindor, so when Snape called the roll just now, she just skipped it. Little Malfoy, who had laughed at Harry being mocked by Snape, turned green when he heard Jerry being praised, as green as the lights in the Slytherin common room. Putting down the roster, Snape looked at all the little wizards in the classroom with cold and empty eyes, and briefly introduced the subject of potions. Jerry summed it up, that is to say, this subject is very good and powerful, and those who can't learn it are fools. After the opening remarks, Snape immediately launched a series of sharp questions about potions to Harry. Harry was not Hermione, or a normal little wizard, and it was impossible for him to memorize the difficult book Magic Potions and Potions before school started. With this, he taunted Harry again. Even Jerry, who had anticipated that situation, couldn't help but sympathize with Harry for a few seconds. If Harry hadn't been at his aunt's house since he was a child, he had already suffered countless grievances and developed a strong heart. If it was any other little wizard, he would probably be scared to tears by Snape now. In fact, Jerry knew that although Snape was willing to protect Harry with his own life, it was because Harry was the child of Lily, Snape's favorite woman. With a very similar appearance to his former rival James, and being in Gryffindor, it was hard for Snape not to hate Harry. If it was Harley and Slytherin entered again, Snape probably wouldn't have the same attitude. Jerry Carmen, you answer the few questions just now. After a while of taunting, Snape looked at Harry's green eyes like lilies, paused for a moment, and ordered to Jerry, ignoring Hermione, who was already raising her hand next to Harry. Jerry sighed helplessly, but stood up anyway. In fact, he didn't want to get involved now. After all, Harry was miserable, and Hermione raised her hand so high. However, Snape had already called him by name directly, so he had no choice but to stand up and answer honestly. Narcissus root powder and wormwood can be mixed together to make a powerful sleeping pill, which is a dose of life and death water. Coprolites are stones taken from the stomach of goats, which have a strong detoxifying effect. As for the aconite, it is the same plant as Chamaegasma aconitum, and they are collectively called aconitum. 10 points for Slytherin. Snape nodded in satisfaction, and the little Slytherin wizard burst into cheers. Even Goyle and Crabbe couldn't hold back their applause, but they were finally stopped by a look from Malfoy. Just add 10 points, as expected of you, Professor Snape. Snape was so blatantly partial that Jerry was a little embarrassed. End of this chapter. Chapter 40 The Half-Blood Prince's notes. Also, Potter, Gryffindor will take 1 point off for contradicting the teacher just now. Snape added one last word, and began to group the young wizards in pairs. And Harry was helpless even though he was angry. Seeing this, Jerry had no choice but to pat him on the shoulder through Hermione to comfort him. There is no way, who made your father always bully others when he was in school, now that your father is gone, he can only vent his anger on you. Maybe this is called the son inheriting the father's business. Oh, no, it should be the father's debt and the son's repayment. When grouping, because the number of Gryffindors was relatively large and the number of Slytherins was relatively small, and they were all odd numbers, so Jerry and Hermione were divided into a group and cooperated to complete a potion for treating boils. In the magic book Magic Potion and Potion, in addition to explaining in detail the steps, details, and precautions of basic potion refining, it also provides a total of 7 kinds of potion refining methods. They are: General Antidote, Potion for treating boils, Amnesia Potion, Herbicide Potion, Sleeping Potion, Water of Life and Death, Swelling Potion, Sober Potion. After the distribution was over, Snape first explained the whole potion refining process, and then demonstrated how to make a bottle by himself. The preparation of potions is actually very similar to those chemical experiments in Jerry's previous life when he was in school. They are all prepared precisely according to the formula by using various instruments such as small medicine bottles and scales. Care and rigor are the most important things in the refining of potions. However, unlike ordinary chemical experiments, the desired results can be obtained by completing the modulation according to the steps. For the refining of potions, if you just follow the steps, you will end up with a puddle of useless mixture. It also needs to cooperate with the magic power in the body, and finally use the magic wand to finish the potion, in order to get the correct and effective magic potion. Therefore, if you are just a muggle without magic power, even if you get the materials and production methods for refining potions, you will not be able to really refine the corresponding potions. UBD, don't you have eyes? What do you call dried nettles? Idiot, it's the fangs of a crushing snake. Do you know what crushing means? When the little wizards began to follow the steps to make the potion, Snape also dragged his long black cloak and walked up and down the classroom to check. However, his scolding almost never stopped. All the little wizards he passed by were sprayed with blood by him. Even the little wizards of Slytherin are no exception, they will still be scolded if they make mistakes. Only when he got to the group of Jerry and Hermione, did he nod his head in satisfaction and give a few words of praise. At this time, Jerry has already turned on the refreshing mode, and his brain and body are in peak condition. Together with Hermione, who is very talented in potions, he can make the simplest potion. Of course, there is no problem. Done. Not long after Snape left from behind, pink smoke rose from the cauldron in front of Jerry and Hermione, which also indicated that the boil potion had been successfully concocted. Oops! At this moment, Neville and Seamus in the next group suddenly let out a scream. Their cauldrons leaked for some unknown reason, the potion spilled, and thick green acidic smoke suddenly rose. Chain legs! Jerry, who was refreshed, had 5 senses and reactions so fast. The moment he saw an accident on Neville and Seamus' side, he immediately lifted their buttocks towards them, kicking them in a row. Kicked Neville and Seamus away with soft strength so that they would not be sprayed by the green smoke, then immediately turned around and hugged Hermione and jumped onto the stool next to him to prevent them from being sprayed by the extremely corrosive potion erosion. Even so, Harry and Ron, who were on Neville's other side, had the potion splashed on their shoes, burning several holes in them. It can be seen that the preparation of this potion is not so safe. One mistake in the experiment may cost one's life. And this is the simplest potion preparation. Thinking about it, there are so few masters of potion science in the wizarding world, which may have a lot to do with the danger of preparing potions. If there is no talent in potion preparation, not only will the preparation fail, a lot of precious raw materials will be wasted, and your own life may be in danger. Idiot! Snape snarled and walked over, swiping his wand to wipe away the potion and green smoke that had been spilled on the ground. I suppose you put the porcupine quills in the cauldron without removing it from the fire, did you? Neville and Seamus got up from the ground and said nothing, obviously acquiescing. Because of your idiot behavior, Gryffindor has been deducted 1 point, go back and remodulate. After Snape finished cursing, he looked back at Jerry and nodded in satisfaction, your reaction was quick. If it wasn't for you, the two of them would have gone to the infirmary just now. 3 points for Slytherin. After speaking, he happened to see the potion prepared by Jerry and Hermione on the table, his eyes lit up. You actually prepared it so quickly? Yes, quite perfect, a very good potion. It seems that you are very talented in potions. Slater will add 3 points. Ahem, this, Professor, the potion was concocted by me and Hermione. Seeing that Snape ignored Hermione directly, Jerry had no choice but to remind him. Snape glanced at Hermione, well, Gryffindor also adds 3 points. After speaking, he began to patrol the classroom again. But when he walked in front of Harry and Ron, he suddenly paused again, and turned to look at Harry who was cooking the tentacled slug. Potter, why didn't you tell Neville not to add the porcupine quills? You thought it would be okay if he made a mistake? Gryffindor lost another point for you. Harry petrified on the spot. Potions class was over, and when all the little wizards left the classroom to go to the auditorium for dinner, Jerry excused himself to go back to the dormitory and temporarily escaped from the crowd. Carefully observing the corridor in the basement, and making sure that Snape had returned to his office, Jerry came to the door of the potions classroom again. A hole is open. Casting an unlocking charm on the classroom door, Jerry pushed it open and walked in. After carefully turning around in the classroom, he immediately set his sights on the locker next to the podium. That locker was where Snape kept some potion ingredients that he used to use in class. Opening the locker and rummaging through it, Jerry finally found what he wanted in the bottom layer of the locker, a second-hand 6th grade potions textbook, Advanced Potion Making. Turning to the first page of the book, a line of handwritten signatures appeared in his eyes. The book belongs to the Half-Blood Prince. End of this chapter. Chapter 41 God's Shadowless Curse. According to what Jerry learned from watching the movie before, the title of Half-Blood Prince was given to him by Snape when he was in school. And this 6th grade potions textbook recorded a lot of Snape's experience in potions. Of course, most of these potion experiences will not be used until the 6th grade potion refining, and it is not very useful to memorize them now, just like the formulas used in advanced mathematics. Even if they are memorized, it is difficult to be flexible used in elementary school addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So Jerry got the 6th grade potion experience now, which is not very helpful for his current 1st grade potion study. However, what he valued was not Snape's experience with potions. What he really valued were the few spells that Snape had invented in the Half-Blood Prince's notebook. Especially the most famous Shen Feng Wu Ying curse. This is a spell that Jerry values very much at the moment. It doesn't mean how powerful he is. Judging from the fact that Harry only severely injured Malfoy after using it in the movie, the lethality of the Shadowless Curse is not that strong. Because hits such as binding spells and stun spells can be directly controlled, killing spells are sure to kill, and Shen Feng Wu Ying spells are only serious injuries. Of course, it might be that Harry was not proficient in using it. If Snape used it, it might be more lethal. But don't forget, even if it's a little wizard in the first or second grade, if he uses all petrification, he can still freeze people in place and cannot move. However, even so, Jerry is still very fond of Shenfeng Wuyi Curse. Because this spell has a very prominent advantage, that is, it is invisible and invisible when it is released, and it cannot be detected at all. Generally, when a normal spell is released, a beam of magic light is shot out, which is very conspicuous, just like the killing curse. When it is shot out, a green light flies towards you. Although death is inevitable, if you react fast enough and predict accurately enough, there is still a chance to miss it. However, the release of the Shadowless Curse does not have any magical light. The release of the Shadowless Curse is like releasing an invisible blade. Unless you are protected by the Iron Armor Curse in advance, it is difficult to detect. This advantage may not be particularly obvious in the wizarding world. Because wizards have good physical fitness, but their speed and reaction ability are not very different from normal humans, so in many cases, they cannot rely on their bodies to dodge magic attacks. Shooting a spell from a wand is the same as shooting a bullet from a gun. With the speed of magic and bullets, ordinary people can't dodge at all. Even if there is a successful dodge, it is not because his speed is faster than magic or bullets, but because he has predicted the attack trajectory in advance and dodged in advance through the movement of the opponent's arm waving. There are very few wizards who can do this, so they all choose not to dodge but to use magic defense, cast an armor spell, or directly face the waves. However, in the Marvel world, there are still quite a few guys whose bodies are beyond ordinary people and who can dodge bullets. Ordinary magic is shot, if the opponent's physical fitness is strong, like a flash bullet, then his magic will hardly cause damage. At this time, the Shenfeng Shadowless Curse comes in handy. When released, it is invisible, and it can cause damage to the opponent without the opponent's knowledge. This is also the magic spell that he planned to obtain from the very beginning. However, because he was busy memorizing the textbooks before, he didn't spare time. Now he has basically finished memorizing all the textbooks, and he happened to come to potions class today, so he took them away. Holding the Half-Blood Prince's note, Jerry first returned to the Slytherin lounge, hid the book in the suitcase, and then returned to the auditorium on the first floor for lunch. There was no class on Friday afternoon, and after lunch, he returned to the dormitory again. The three of Malfoy were not in the dormitory. In fact, some boys of this age were willing to stay in the dormitory during the day, and they were mostly exploring the castle. After taking a break to recover the energy consumed by turning on rejuvenation in potions class in the morning, he was alone in the dormitory in the afternoon, studying the few self-created spells that Snape recorded in his notes. There are a total of 6 spells recorded in the notes, namely, God's Shadowless Curse, Quick Healing Curse, Upside Down Fuchsia Curse, Admiralty Falling Curse, Ear Closing Curse, and Toenail Growth Curse. After reading and writing down all the 6 spells, Jerry realized that the Shadowless Curse not only has the characteristic of invisibility and shadowlessness, but also has the characteristic of curse. That is the place where the cut by the Shenfeng Shadowless Curse will be cursed and cannot be healed. Nothing like ordinary healing spells, potions, or Muggle medical treatments. Unless with its corresponding counterspell, which was Snape's invention of the instant healing charm. Only then did Jerry realize that not all spells can be broken with the universal cracking spell curse standing. Many special spells need to know the corresponding anti-spell to be able to break the magic effect it produces. Just like if someone is cast with the Fuchsia Curse and hangs in mid-air, then he must use the Admiralty Falling Curse to remove it, or wait for the magic effect to disappear by itself. Under the effect of refreshing the mind, Jerry's brain is running at high speed. However, I don't know if it's because the level of the spells Snape invented is too high, or his current magic theory and knowledge reserves are not enough. After spending a whole afternoon, he didn't even learn a single spell. You must know that when learning those first-year spells, it was not as difficult as it is now. It seems that the library is still going. With only the first-grade textbook and the content of the teacher's class, it is still difficult to quickly learn a spell of this level like the Shenfeng Wuyi Curse. So he had to learn from classmate Hermione, read those related magic books in the library more, and gain additional magic knowledge in order to improve his magic level. I checked the time, it was past 6 o'clock. With a dazed mind, Jerry left the Slytherin lounge and headed to the Great Hall for dinner. After dinner, he didn't chat with the little Slytherins in the Slytherin common room, but went straight to sleep to recover from the wake-up call he'd had in the afternoon. It is impossible for Jerry to spend a lot of time socializing, his time is so precious, and he consumes little red star every day. Of course, he must use it to study magic and improve his strength. And in Slytherin, as long as you are good enough, as long as you can get a lot of honor for Slytherin, then you are the most beautiful boy in Slytherin. It doesn't matter if you communicate or not. And as the idol of all the little wizards in the future, it is also necessary to keep a proper distance from fans and maintain a sense of mystery. 11 o'clock in the evening, after all the little Slater wizards fell asleep, Jerry, who had replenished his sleep, got up, took the magic book to the common room, turned on the brain-boosting function again, and entered the learning state. End of this chapter. Chapter 42. Snape's misunderstanding. Early the next morning, Jerry and Hermione, who had made an appointment earlier, rushed to the library on the second floor together after having breakfast in the auditorium. A lot of books. As soon as she entered the library, Hermione couldn't help but let out an exclamation. Jerry glanced over and nodded in agreement. In the movie, the number of books in the library is not particularly highlighted, so it seems that the library of Hogwarts is not big, and there are not many magic books. But in fact, there are at least thousands of bookshelves and tens of thousands of magic books in the entire library. Also, the history of wizards can be said to be very long, and it involves various fields, and there are many categories, so how can there be fewer related books? Let's get a library card first. After regaining consciousness, Hermione took Jerry and walked over to where the librarian Irma Pants was. On the way, Hermione had already told him that if he wanted to read and borrow books in the library, he had to apply for a library card first. The librarian Irma Pants, a thin and elderly witch, warned Jerry and Hermione in a very stern tone when she heard that Jerry and Hermione were about to apply for a library card. If you cut, tear, dent, soil, damage, throw, drop, or in any other way damage, abuse, or desecrate the books in the library, it is within my power to hold you accountable, the most dire consequences. Also, it is forbidden to eat any snacks in the library, and it is not allowed to go to the restricted area without the teacher's signature and approval. Seeing that both Jerry and Hermione nodded honestly, she tapped the two brand new library cards with her magic wand, registered their information and handed them over to them. The restricted area. With some reluctance, Jerry looked away from the rows of bookshelves that marked the forbidden book section, and walked to the ordinary book section with Hermione, looking for the magic book he needed. In the bookshelves in the restricted area, there must be a lot of magic books that record powerful magic and potions, but without the teacher's signature, it is not so easy to get. In fact, he has thought about whether he should sneak into the library at night and steal the magic book in the restricted area, like stealing the notes of the Half-Blood Prince. But after thinking about it, he rejected this whimsical approach. In the potions classroom, apart from some basic herbs for students to practice, there was nothing precious. Even if he sneaked in and was discovered, it would be no big deal. Moreover, the Half-Blood Prince's notes had been kept in the locker for a long time, and Snape didn't often look them up. He took the notes and quickly memorized them before returning them, and Snape probably wouldn't find out. But the library is different, especially in the restricted area. There are so many dangerous magic books in it, it is definitely not easy to protect. He is not Harry, there is Dumbledore opening the back door. So it is better not to take this risk for the time being, and then consider it slowly after the strength becomes stronger. There are too many books in the library, and there are also a lot of miscellaneous books. Jerry searched for a while before he found a book that he felt was useful to him now. Research on the development of modern witchcraft. After flipping through it briefly, he found that there were quite a few explanations about magic theory, which was very helpful for him to learn magic spells, so he took the magic book to the reading area on the side, and turned on the refreshing function to read it. Stand up. After a while, Hermione also sat next to Jerry with a guide to medieval witchcraft. In this way, the two sat quietly on the bench and looked at the magic book in their hands. If they encountered something difficult to understand, they would try to communicate and discuss with each other. At the end of the day, I feel that I have gained a lot. Sometimes thinking alone is not as efficient as two people communicating. Jerry felt that if he discussed the advanced spells that Snape had invented with Hermione, it would shorten the time he needed to learn them. But after thinking about it, he didn't choose to do that. It's better not to let others know about his secret learning of magic spells for the time being. If it is leaked out, the good persona he created before will collapse. The Hogwarts library closes at 8 p.m. So after agreeing to continue reading books tomorrow, Jerry and Hermione each borrowed a few magic books with their library cards and left the library. However, when leaving the library, there was an episode. That was when they happened to run into the dour Professor Snape. At that time, when Snape saw Jerry and Hermione coming out of the library talking and laughing, he was taken aback for a moment, and then he didn't know what he thought of, and asked them a few questions in an uncharacteristically gentle tone. One of them asked if he and Hermione had known each other and become friends before going to Hogwarts. At that time, Jerry thought that since he and Hermione met in Diagon Alley, they were indeed friends before entering Hogwarts, so he nodded. Unexpectedly, after Snape got the answer, he was stunned. He sighed, patted Jerry on the shoulder, and told him earnestly, "Don't lose affection just because he didn't belong to a college. Also, don't get too addicted to magic, don't lose to Harry." It made Jerry a little confused on the spot. With Snape's character, shouldn't he be allowed to get in touch with the stupid Gryffindor less and focus more on learning magic and earning credits for Slytherin? Could it be that he misunderstood something? He didn't want to understand it, so he didn't bother with it anymore, and Jerry continued to focus on learning magic. In the next few days, when there were classes, he would take classes seriously, study hard and actively answer questions to earn credits and improve his reputation. When there is no class and evening time, he will take out the magic books borrowed from the library to further his studies. If there is something you don't understand, talk to Hermione. In fact, he wanted to go to the teacher for advice. However, there are not many teachers at Hogwarts, and almost most of them have to teach 7 grades. The time is also very tight, it is not so easy to find, and there is not much time to give him detailed guidance. The time soon came to Wednesday of the second week. On this day, on the bulletin board in the Slytherin common room, he saw a message announcing that he would take flying lessons with Gryffindor tomorrow. Many little wizards were excited by the arrival of flying lessons, especially male little wizards like Malfoy who liked Quidditch. Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, Jerry got up and left the dormitory as usual. But this time he didn't go to the common room to read, but violated Hogwarts curfew and sneaked upstairs. Now there are only more than 30 of his little red stars left, and he can only persist until tomorrow. So he wanted to get a broomstick before returning to the main world at 12 o'clock in the evening. After returning in this way, he can earn Little Red Star more efficiently. End of this chapter. Chapter 43 The Room of Requirement. Originally, when Jerry entered this time, he stored a total of more than 6,000 Little Red Stars. According to his original plan, he could persist for 2 months. However, because the branch was assigned to Slytherin, he had to study hard and absorb a lot of magical knowledge, which caused him to consume a lot of Little Red Stars every day to activate the refreshing function. Therefore, in just 11 days, only more than 30 of his more than 6,000 Little Red Stars were left. Aside from the fact that he consumed less on the first day, since he started school, he has to turn on the brain-boosting function for about 3 hours every night to study. Every day during the day, the boosting and refreshing function is indirectly turned on, which adds up to 4 or 5 hours. So on average, he needs to start boosting and refreshing for 7 to 8 hours a day. And to turn on the function of boosting the brain, 1 Little Red Star will be consumed every minute, 61 hour, and close to 507 or 8 hours. In 11 days, nearly 5,000 Little Red Stars were consumed just by turning on the refreshing function. In addition, every day he stays in the small world, he will consume 100 of them. In 11 days, more than 6,000 Little Red Stars will be consumed. At 12 o'clock tonight, if the number of Little Red Stars is not enough, he will be forced to return to the main world. Fortunately, although the crazy study during this period consumed a lot of Little Red Stars, it also gained a lot. Not only have I learned very practical spells, but my knowledge of magic and the use of magic have also improved a lot compared to before. Now, all he needs is a broomstick. Too bad it wasn't Gryffindor, who couldn't get a free Nimbus 2000 from Professor McGonagall, so he had to think of other ways. At the beginning, he planned to secretly borrow an educational broomstick for flying lessons, and bring it back and put it back when he returns. But after inquiring later, I found out that those teaching broomsticks used in class are stored in the teacher's dormitory where Ms. Hooch lives. Go to the teacher's dormitory to steal a broomstick, isn't that courting death? So after thinking about it, he felt that he had to find another way. I carefully recalled the contents of several movies in my mind, especially after the refreshing function was turned on. He finally found a place where he could get a broomstick for free in his memory. That is, the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts. He remembered that in the movie, it seemed that when Goyle or Crabbe cast the Dimer Blaze curse in the Room of Requirement, the 3 of Harry found 3 broomsticks and escaped. The room of response should be on the 8th floor. Carefully pushing open the stone door, Jerry came to the basement corridor. Return to the first floor along the hallway, and then enter the second floor from the luxurious marble staircase on the first floor. On the second floor, there are 142 moving magic stairs. Although these magic stairs like to move around, their movement and connection also have certain rules. The prefect had already told them these rules on the first day of school. There are portraits hanging on the walls around the stairs. Most of the characters in these portraits are asleep at this time, and there are a few who are not asleep. Seeing Jerry appear, they didn't make too much noise. Reaction. It happens every year that the little wizard goes to the castle at night in violation of the regulations. The small team with Harry's father in the front, the Weasley twins in the middle, and the Iron Triangle with Harry in the future. So as long as you don't get caught red-handed by Filch and the teacher on patrol, then there won't be any problems. Jerry also knew in his heart that these portraits on the wall were actually Dumbledore's eyeliner, and Dumbledore probably knew roughly everything that happened in the castle. But he wasn't worried. Because Dumbledore would not interfere with the night tour of the castle, and he didn't go to the library to steal books, but went to the 8th floor to find the room of requirement, knowing that it was not a big deal. Stepping on the magic stairs, Jerry walked towards the 8th floor as carefully as possible. However, just as he stepped onto the corridor on the 8th floor, a small figure appeared on the guardrail of the corridor on the 8th floor. Taking a closer look, it was Filch's pet cat, Mrs. Norris. Meow. Seeing that Mrs. Norris yelled at him, and was about to turn around to report to Filch, Jerry quickly took out a secret weapon he had prepared from his left pocket and threw it at Mrs. Norris. Click! A small grilled and brown trout landed in front of Mrs. Norris. Mrs. Norris looked at the grilled fish in front of her, and immediately stopped her catwalk. Meow woo! It looked at Jerry hesitantly, as if to say, "Are you bribing Meow? Am I that unsteady Meow?" Seeing this, the corners of Jerry's mouth slightly raised, and he took out a grilled brown small trout from his right pocket again and threw it over. Since you didn't refuse immediately, it means that you are already tempted. As long as you add the amount, the problem will not be too big. After all, what cat can say no to fish? Sure enough, after a while, Jerry calmly walked past Mrs. Norris, who was engrossed in eating, and looked for the possible location of the room of requirement. Found it! Jerry looked at a giant blanket hanging in the corridor, his eyes lit up. At this time, a wizard on the giant carpet was trying to teach the troll to dance, but was chased by the troll with a big stick. If he remembered correctly, the white wall opposite this huge tapestry should be the entrance to the room of requirement. Since having the function of boosting the brain, Jerry found that as long as he turned on this function and tried to recall the memories of his previous life, many forgotten memories would clearly reappear in his mind. This also allowed him to gradually recall all the Harry Potter movies he had seen in his previous life, as well as related news, small videos, and some small science. This way of entering the room of response is what he saw in a small science popularization in his previous life. I need that hiding place. Jerry kept thinking about this, and walked past the white wall 3 times in a row. Crack! On the blank white wall, suddenly a very smooth door appeared out of thin air. Nice! With a smile on Jerry's face, he grasped the brass handle, opened the door, stepped over the threshold and walked in. It was a room the size of a church, and it was filled with as many hills of various items that had been hidden by students who had been at Hogwarts. However, most of them are useless things, such as bottles, hats, boxes, chairs, bats, and so on. But there are also very useful ones, just like the main goal of Jerry's coming in this time-flying broom. End of this chapter. Chapter 44 Return and Test Flight. After searching for a while, in addition to finding a broomstick that doesn't look too old, Jerry also accidentally found a few magic books that look very good, Common Spells and Solutions, Outwit Black Magic, Self-Defense Spell Collection, Fighting Poison with Poison. It was an unexpected gain this time. Of course, he also saw the legendary Diadem of Raw and Claw, one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, on a pock-marked bust of a wizard. But he didn't care too much. That thing is of no use to him now, he has no ability to destroy it, and if he takes it, it will be affected by Voldemort's soul inside, so it's better to ignore it. It's 12 o'clock so soon. I didn't expect that time passed so quickly when I was rummaging through it. Jerry quickly grasped the broomstick with his left hand, while holding the magic wand and a box of BB's multi-flavored beans reserved in advance with his right hand, while holding the magic books, waiting for 12 o'clock to come. Because the number of little red stars is not enough, a forced return is started, and the countdown starts, 10, 9, 8, 73, 2, 1. Following the prompt on the strange panel, the whole world has once again come to a standstill. Jerry, what are you doing with that weird broom and stick? Still holding, what book is this? When Jerry opened his eyes again, he was back at home in Queens, New York. However, at the same time, he heard the doubtful voice of his younger sister Aisha. It seems that next time we enter the small world, we need to find a time when no one is around. Holding a broomstick, magic wand, BB multi-flavored beans, and holding a magic book, Jerry sat on the sofa, looked at his sister who was staring at him, and made a secret decision in his heart. This broom, I just bought it during the day to clean the room. This wooden stick is actually a tool I bought for stirring soup. As for these books, seeing the suspicious look in Aisha's eyes, he immediately said with a smile in his heart, these books are a complete set of mathematics for elementary school students that I bought specially for you, so that you won't be bored during summer vacation. What? Jerry, what are you talking about? Oops, you actually sneak attack, you actually cast hypnotic magic on the queen. As soon as Aisha heard that it was related to mathematics, she reacted very quickly, and jumped off the sofa without watching TV. Then, holding his head, he swayed as if performing Lingba Weibu, rushed into his room, and slammed the door shut. Jerry twitched his mouth when he saw this, took the broomstick and the magic book, turned off the TV, and returned to his room. He knew what his sister's biggest weakness was, and that was mathematics. As a subject that she had never passed since she was in school, Aisha hated mathematics. And whenever Jerry wants to tutor his sister in math, there will be a situation like today, where he is suddenly hit by various magic. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, and Haas is on the night shift today, so he won't come back to sleep at night, so when Jerry returned to his room, he fell asleep right away. When the alarm clock rang at 12 o'clock, he opened his eyes and quietly left the community with his broomstick. Avoiding pedestrians and ubiquitous cameras all the way, Jerry cautiously came to an abandoned factory that he had discovered during his previous patrol. It's not that he is overly cautious, it's just that the power of technology cannot be underestimated sometimes. In a modern city full of cameras, it is easy to find out his true identity if someone finds clues. After entering the factory, Jerry pulled off the hood of the sweater on his head, and took the broomstick out of the large black plastic bag. Sweep Samsung. Looking at the words marked on the broomstick, he knew that it was a very outdated broomstick. Because of the consideration of the broomstick, in the library a few days ago, he specially borrowed a book called The History of the Origin and Development of the Flying Broom and another guide to the initial use of the flying broom to watch. Sweeping Samsung's flying broom belongs to the Sweeping series developed by Sweeping Broom Company. It was released in 1937, which means that the broom he took from the room of requirement has a history of several decades. But maybe it hasn't been used much, and it doesn't look too old. 2 puffs. Putting the broomstick on the ground, Jerry recalled the spells he had learned in the introduction to using the broomstick, and slowly stretched out his right hand. The magic power in the body emanates from the right hand along with the spell, and is closely connected with the broomstick on the ground. The broomstick rolled happily on the ground, and then, stopped. Jerry shook his eyebrows a little speechlessly. It seems that not only is his aptitude for learning magic not good, but he also has no talent for flying broomsticks. Before he was full of confidence that if he took the broomstick class, he would definitely crush Harry and become the most beautiful boy in the class, but now it seems that he is a bit sloppy. Although his body is strong, he must be very flexible to control the broomstick to fly in the air, but the premise is that he can let the broomstick fly first. Turn on Boost Brain Boosting. In order not to waste time, Jerry directly entered the Superman form. Relying on his super brain, he began to repeatedly practice the spells of controlling the broomstick, and quickly improved his proficiency. With the help of refreshment, in less than 5 minutes, he had fully mastered the spell technique of controlling the broomstick. Since there are more than 30 little red stars left now, after mastering the technique, he immediately stopped consuming little red stars. 2 puffs. Chanting the spell again, this time the broomstick fell into his right hand very smoothly. Riding on the broomstick, under the control of the mind, the broomstick carried Jerry to float. Go! With an order, the broomstick slowly accelerated and flew towards the other end of the warehouse. When he was about to hit the wall, he pulled it up again, and the broomstick narrowly avoided it and flew back again. Ha ha, Ness! Controlling and sweeping Samsung, Jerry flew in the warehouse with Curry, which was a joy. The happiness of a man is so simple. Even though Jerry's soul is close to 40 years old, riding a broom that can fly freely in the air is still a very happy thing. When people reach middle age, they will become more mature and stable due to various life pressures and responsibilities. But in fact, when he is alone or with peers with the same interests, you will find that he will actually show a naive and childish side. Excitedly in the warehouse, Curry flew up and down, left and right, and even lost control a few times and almost hit the roof. Jerry finally fully controlled the use of the broomstick. Time to go outside and try it out. Looking at the time, it was not 1 o'clock. Jerry changed his sweater, put on the wizard suit he brought out, picked up his wand and broomstick, and walked out of the warehouse. End of this chapter. Chapter 45 Jerry flies on a broom. Woohoo! Compared with the little space in Curry, flying in the vast sky on a broomstick obviously requires a much higher experience. The cool wind in the early morning of summer whistled in my ears, and the wizard's robe fluttered with the wind, like a pair of black wings. The maximum speed of 60 miles per hour is equivalent to the speed of a car at 100 kilometers per hour. Although it is not particularly fast, flying freely in the air without hindrance is much more exciting than driving on the ground. However, this can only be done in summer. If you fly like this in winter, you will probably have to go to the hospital the next day to hang up the water and take cold medicine. After flying for a while, feeling that he was about to be blown into a fool by the cold wind in the sky, Jerry began to lower his height, shuttled between tall buildings, and flew towards other places he could not reach before. Because he ran all by his legs, the scope of his patrols was not large, mainly in some streets and alleys around his community. And because of his frequent haunts, the crime rate near the community has been greatly reduced, which has also reduced his efficiency of earning little red stars. Now that he has a broomstick, the range of patrols can be expanded, and he doesn't have to worry about being too late to go home. Flying in the air, the line of sight is definitely much better than the line of sight below, and can detect some illegal and criminal behaviors more accurately and quickly. Queens, in a duplex building on the top floor of a high-end community building, a family of 3 was tied to the ground with a rope. 2 masked robbers, one tall and one skinny, were asking the head of the family's father for the password to the safe with a knife. Although the father was very angry, but for the safety of his family, he reluctantly told the 2 robbers the password to open the safe. Just when the 2 robbers opened the safe in the bedroom, they filled the stacks of beautiful knives in the safe with excitement into the suitcases they had prepared in advance. At some point, a black figure appeared outside the glass window of the bedroom. If there is no flying broomstick, such a good thing will not happen. When Jerry was riding a broomstick between high-rise buildings, he suddenly rolled his eyes and saw a room in the building next to him. Someone was looking for a burglary, and he was immediately overjoyed. He took out his wand, and made a silent gesture towards the little girl in the bedroom who was being hugged by her mother and whose eyes widened when she saw her appear. Jerry hit the bedroom window with an unlocking spell. Click! With a crisp sound, the lock on the window opened automatically. Hearing the sound coming from the window and the cool wind suddenly blowing into the bedroom, the 2 gangsters who were loading money and their father and mother who were staring at the gangster turned their heads at the same time. Then, they all showed an expression of disbelief. What did they see? They saw a child in a Halloween wizard suit, riding what appeared to be a broomstick, hovering outside the window. Floating out the window? But how is this possible? This is the 28th floor, more than 100 meters above the ground in the sky. Good evening. After opening the window, Jerry waved his wand very politely to the 4 people who were stunned inside. Then, before the 2 robbers could react from their stupefaction, they pointed their wands at each other, and 2 magical rays shot directly at them. All petrified. Suddenly, the 2 robbers who were hit by the magic light froze and fell to the ground with a bang, the beautiful knives in their hands scattered all over the ground. The body-binding spell, which Jerry took a long time to find in a magic book called Curses and Curses Breaking Curses in the library. A very practical offensive spell, even with his magic power, it can instantly petrify ordinary adults. But the petrification here is different from the petrification of the basilisk. The body-binding spell only binds your body and limbs with a magical force, but the eyeballs can move, the consciousness is still there, and a series of senses such as the 5 senses can function normally. After being cursed, it can be unlocked with a universal cracking spell, or it can be unlocked automatically when the time is up. But the petrification of the basilisk is different. It is really petrified into a stone, and there is no feeling at all. If there is no way to crack it, it will be no different from a corpse. The two are not the same level of magic. Flaviv. After restraining the two robbers, Jerry pointed his wand at the rope on the wrist of the father in the bedroom, and used the transfiguration charm to turn it into noodles. Finally, he pointed his wand at the beautiful knife at the safe. The beautiful knife is flying. $200 knives flew out of the safe and landed in his hand. The summoning charm, a very ancient spell, is a spell that Jerry learned in the Guide to Medieval Witchcraft. It is said that this spell will also be taught in the 4th grade charm textbook. His function is very simple, but very useful. When you try to summon an object, you have to focus and clearly visualize the object in your mind so that wherever it is, it will come flying towards you. However, this is a curse that is easy to learn but difficult to master. To put it simply, the item you summon, its weight, size, material, whether it has magic power, the distance from you, whether it is a living or inanimate item, these factors will affect the success rate of your summoning spell. Just like now, if Jerry just summoned 2 light and beautiful knives, it would be easy to succeed, but if he directly summoned the heavy safe, it would be very difficult. If the safe is not near him, but in another room, the difficulty will increase. If what he summons is not a safe, but something with magic power, or a living animal, the difficulty will increase linearly. Also, you can't use a summoning spell to summon a person, it won't have any effect. Even if his summoning spell has been perfected, he can't just say Aisha comes here and summon his sister who is lying on her back and sleeping soundly at home. My magic can only immobilize them for 10 minutes. Hurry up and call the police. These 2 tickets will be my reward. Putting the knife in his pocket, Jerry rode his broom and disappeared from the window with a swish. The father, who reacted immediately, broke free from the noodles in his hand, untied the rope that bound his wife and daughter, ran to the window and stuck his head out. When he saw the figure of Jerry riding a broomstick gradually disappearing in the air, he couldn't help exclaiming, "Oh my God, there is magic in this world." The 10 minutes that Jerry said echoed. He quickly tied up the 2 burglars who were immobilized by magic with a rope, and then called the police. End of this chapter. Chapter 46. Little Fame. Flying over Queens on a broomstick, he touched the $200 in his pocket, and a satisfied smile appeared on Jerry's face. What a pleasure it is to earn a little bit of money while earning a little red star. Although he doesn't know how to use magic to steal or he still thinks it is acceptable to exchange for equal value and receive rewards. And he doesn't take much every time, sometimes it's just a few dollars. If the person he saves is very poor, he will take money directly from criminals. In this society, money is not everything, but without money is absolutely impossible. When watching Maguire's Spider-Man in his previous life, he always felt that since Spider-Man was so powerful, he was still so poor, it was unbelievable. And the part-time job he was doing turned out to be to deliver food every day with a spider's thread. With your strength, going to the underground boxing arena to fight black boxing is against the principle, but it should be okay to go to the construction site to move bricks, and moving bricks can earn more than delivering food. But to be honest, he still admires people like Spider-Man in his heart, because they really do good deeds without asking for anything in return, and they really help and protect others from the bottom of their hearts, even at the expense of their own time and love, life. At this point, Jerry thought he couldn't do it. Although he does good deeds every day, in the final analysis, he only wants to make himself stronger, and then protect himself and the loved ones he cares about. Ah, help! Hearing a cry for help from the alley below, Jerry put away his knife, turned his broom and flew towards the direction of the call for help. All petrified. The beautiful knife is flying. In less than a minute, Jerry flew up again. After learning the body-binding spell, ordinary robbers are as fragile as babies in his eyes, and the efficiency of solving problems has been greatly improved. And there will never be the embarrassing situation of being chased around by patrol police afterwards. 3 o'clock in the morning. Jerry went back to the warehouse again, changed out of his wizard robes, and returned to his living quarters with his broomstick and other items. In fact, he has a broomstick, so he can leave directly from the window of his room, and then return home through the window of the room. But doing so is not safe. Because if someone can mobilize satellite surveillance and carefully search the neighborhoods near him, it will be easy to expose his identity. Taking off and landing from the abandoned factory every time, although it cannot be completely guaranteed, at least it is an added layer of insurance. It is more troublesome to enter and leave the community with clothes behind the broomstick. When he learns any one of the disillusionment curse, apparition, or untraceable growth curse, this problem will be easily solved. Meanwhile, the Queen's police department, in the sheriff's office, Haas looked at the statement in his hand, and looked at the police officer under him with a strange look. "Are you sure this isn't a joke?" The police officer shrugged helplessly. "I also thought they were joking with me, but the statements of the 3 victims and the 2 robbers were completely consistent. They all said that a little wizard on a broom saved them with magic." "Wizard? Magic? How old are you and you still believe in that stuff? I thought only my daughter would do that." Haas shook his head and threw the confession on the table. He felt that there was some unspeakable secret between the family of 3 and the 2 robbers, so they used such nonsensical reasons to fool him. And the policeman seemed to think of something suddenly, and then reminded Haas, "Captain, do you think it has something to do with that kid who liked to wear a wizard's robe and act bravely a while ago? Is he? When you say it, you really look alike. They are both kids, and they both like to dress up as wizards, and they all like to go out at night. However, I haven't heard that he has a broom that can fly before." At this time, Haas also suddenly realized that in the past month, there seemed to be a child who liked to wear wizard robes and come out at night to subdue villains. And his skills are quite good. Once he met and chased for a long time but failed to catch up. Maybe that broom is a flying machine that looks like a broom. What kind of magic is it? It's some high-tech weapons, just like Iron Man. The policeman touched his chin with the expression that the truth should be. Haas nodded and agreed. "Don't worry about him, anyway, he's helping us relieve stress, there's nothing wrong with it, but our kid's so powerful now." In the end, he thought of his son Jerry, who was also an extraordinary child. His academic performance and housework ability made him, as a father, feel ashamed of himself. "But Captain, Director George told us to hunt down this kid named Wizard before. Although his behavior is good, it is also illegal." The police officer reminded me again. "It seems to me that their leaders are also afraid that if this continues, it will appear that our police department is incompetent. However, it is indeed quite dangerous for a child to come out to do such things every night. You can adjust the surveillance to see if you can find where the child's home is. We will come and visit at that time." "Yes, Captain." Time flies, and soon a week passed like this. During this week, Jerry rode a broom around Queens every night. Once a crime was discovered, he would always appear as soon as possible, holding a wand and throwing magic over it. It is precisely because of this that the growth rate of his little red star has doubled several times compared to before. Moreover, his title of wizard is no longer just relegated to the area near the community, but has gradually gained some fame in the entire Queens district. So not only the police were looking for him, but some media people who racked their brains to get the news out of their performance also started to use various methods to find clues about him after hearing the news. However, Jerry acted very quickly every time, and he never stayed shortly after solving the matter, and flew away on a broom. Those media reporters with great powers and patrolling policemen can only learn what happened from the mouths of the victims and robbers. Now for the citizens of Queens, they just heard rumors that there is a kid who likes to wear wizard robes and will appear on a broom after midnight. They don't know the specific situation, and besides what they saw with their own eyes, many citizens still don't believe it. At noon on this day, Jerry practiced the god's shadowless curse silently in the living room alone while his sister Aisha was taking a nap in the room. In the week after his return, because Little Red Star earned a lot of money, he would spend Little Red Star generously every day to learn and comprehend the difficult spells he got from the Half-Blood Prince's notes. Hard work pays off, and now he can barely release those spells correctly. The next thing he has to do is to practice more and increase his proficiency with these spells so that they can exert their power and effect more effectively. End of this chapter. Chapter 47 Water and Fire Inviolability Curse Shenfeng Wuying. Jerry waved his wand at the apple on the coffee table. An invisible sharp blade was fired from the wand, and a hole popped out of the cup on Apple's right. This accuracy still needs to be improved. After looking at the intact apple, and then at the cup next to the apple, Jerry shook his head helplessly. After continuous practice, now he can successfully release the god's shadowless curse, but due to his magical strength, the power used is not very great. So if he wants the shadowless magic curse to exert greater lethality in a short period of time, he must practice more to master his accuracy from another aspect. A slash on the thigh and a slash on the neck, even with the same force, have completely different lethality. He needs the invisible sharp blade issued by himself with the god's shadowless curse to strike wherever he points, preferably a fly flies by, and his invisible sharp blade can accurately cut off the fly's wings. Of course, it will take time and a lot of practice from him over a long period of time. Restored as before. Throwing a restoration charm at the cup next to the apple, the cup was restored to its original state, and he practiced the shadowless charm again. However, just as his control over the Shenfeng shadowless curse became more and more precise, a series of sirens of fire trucks suddenly came from outside. So many cars. Feeling at least 3 or 4 fire trucks passing by the road outside the community, Jerry thought for a while, and immediately took out a guitar bag from the room and rushed out. If there is a fire, many people may be trapped. Once rescued, there should be a lot of little red stars in the account. Old warehouse, Jerry quickly took out the wizard suit from the guitar bag and put it on, then cast a spell on the broomstick he took out, and rode it out of the warehouse quickly. Over there. Flying high in the sky, Jerry quickly spotted the 7 or 8 fire trucks speeding down the street, and then the broomstick accelerated and followed them closely. Oh God, what's that? Mom, look, someone is flying. This world is so crazy that someone flies on a broomstick. A crowd of citizens on the street, attracted by the siren of the fire truck, also spotted Jerry flying not far above the fire truck, and all exclaimed. Jerry used to act at night, so the people who could see him were those who were near the crime scene, or the police who called the surveillance afterwards. Therefore, although most people have heard of a character like a wizard, they have never seen it, and many of them still don't believe it. After all, everyone knows that in order to attract traffic, many media like to exaggerate the facts. What kind of wizard or magic is probably just a powerful magician, using blindfolds. The magician David Copperfield also performed magic tricks related to flying. But today, the day was clear and bright, and they were shocked to see a man dressed as a wizard flying across the sky on a broom that didn't look high-tech. This speed is not like magic. Jerry glanced down at the shocked crowd on the street below, but didn't care. It will only be a matter of time before the public finds out, and he has already been mentally prepared. The key is to earn more little red stars and quickly improve your own strength. As long as your strength improves, nothing else will be a problem. He is not one of those real superheroes, and he always has such concerns. Of course, it is better to maintain a positive image in front of the public, otherwise it will be troublesome to be regarded as a villain and be beaten by other superheroes. To put it more clearly, at least on the surface, he must stand on the highest point of morality, so that it is safer. For fire rescue matters like today, it is good to be high profile. Thinking of this, Jerry deliberately lowered the height of the flight, and waved friendly to the shocked New Yorkers on the street. After flying for about 10 minutes, Jerry finally saw the thick smoke rising in the distance, so he lifted off and accelerated, and rushed directly to the place where the thick smoke rose from a super shortcut in the air. The fastest speed across Samsung was 60 miles per hour, which is about 100 kilometers per hour. From the air, the super shortcut quickly left the police car of the fire brigade behind. 2 minutes later, Jerry finally arrived at the scene of the fire. A small 6-story building along the street here caught fire for unknown reasons. At present, there are already patrolling police officers who have arrived at the scene earlier to maintain order, and some reporters are carrying cameras and broadcasting live. Among them, Jerry also saw an acquaintance. It was the reporter Lucy who liked to shoot him before. Lucy is a little-known news reporter. During this period of time, Jerry expanded the scope of earning a little star, which caused her long-term plan to gradually go bankrupt. During the day today, she received a live broadcast interview with a street hamburger restaurant, but she was only halfway through the interview, and unexpectedly encountered a nearby fire. So she immediately rushed to the scene of the fire with her camera brother and started the live broadcast. Here on Oak Street, I'm your favorite Lucy. A fire broke out unexpectedly here just now. According to the current situation, it should have started on the 2nd floor. Now the fire has reached the 5th floor. However, except for some residents who escaped fortunately, many residents were trapped in the building. The fire brigade has not yet arrived, and the situation is very urgent. Oh God, there seems to be a man in the air. Lucy, who was reporting to the camera, heard the exclamation of the crowd watching the situation, and immediately looked up. A short figure in a wizard's robe was riding a broom, floating above their heads at some point. Quick, point the camera at that kid, he is the wizard I've been looking for all this time. Lucy's eyes lit up, and she immediately yelled at the camera brother. The camera brother reacted very quickly. He raised the camera and pointed the lens at Jerry in the air. At this time, Jerry didn't waste any time, quickly pulled out his wand from his arms, and first cast a water and fire inviolability spell on himself. This was an ancient spell that he had learned in the Guide to Medieval Witchcraft. The main function is to prevent getting wet by rain and prevent being burned by ordinary flames. It is introduced in the book that many wizards in the Middle Ages often cast this spell on themselves when they were caught by muggles and were about to be burned to prevent them from being burned to death. With the magic of water and fire, Jerry accelerated and rode a broomstick into the burning 4th floor. Looking at the fire on the 2nd and 3rd floors, those who could escape must have escaped, and those who could not escape were probably burnt, and now they are dead bodies when they go in to rescue them. There are only people on the 4th and 5th floors, maybe there is still rescue. End of this chapter. Chapter 48 Fame Help. Help. Jerry, who had just rushed to the 4th floor, turned on Superman mode, and his 5 senses were greatly improved, heard a faint cry for help from a room not far away. Don't dare to neglect, with a thought, he rode a broomstick to quickly dodge the stones and steel that fell off in the aisle due to violent burning, and came to a burning red iron door. Fight back at full speed. A repelling spell knocked the loose iron door away, and Jerry rushed into the room against the flames. In the bathroom full of tiles and steam, he found a young lady in a nightgown with a wet towel covering her mouth and nose. At this time, the lady may have inhaled a little smoke, her eyes wandered, and her voice for help gradually weakened. It is estimated that if he came later, the other party would faint and be engulfed by the flames into a corpse. Water and fire do not invade. Casting a fire and water impenetrable spell on the lady in nightgown, Jerry didn't explain, just picked her up and put her on the broomstick, and flew out of the room window against the flames. I leave it to you. Landing handed the nightgown lady to the policeman maintaining order, and without waiting for the other party's reaction, he rode a broomstick into the flames again. These are all little red stars, if one less one is saved, one less little red star will be lost. After searching for a while, he found 2 young men at the entrance of the elevator. He probably wanted to escape by the elevator when the fire came, but he didn't expect to be directly blown down by the thick smoke. Fire and water inviolability combined with a levitation spell, Jerry rode out of the flames on a broomstick, grabbing one arm with one hand. In this way, he went back and forth between the 4th floor, the 5th floor, and the half-burned 6th floor, and rescued more than 20 residents, large and small, men and women, who were trapped by the flames and fell down by the thick smoke. During this period, the fire brigade finally arrived, and several fire trucks sprayed water for rescue at the same time, and the fire was finally brought under control. When Jerry finally put the old couple hiding on the roof of the 6th floor, hugging each other and preparing to face death together, on the ground. The onlookers and the police officers who maintained order silently raised their hands and applauded him. Hearing the applause full of gratitude around him, for a moment, he even felt that even without the little red star, it seemed pretty good. But soon he shook his head and shook off this dangerous thought. The current him is not really powerful and invincible, he is just slightly stronger than ordinary people, but he must not have such self-righteous and dangerous thoughts. Saint, that's not something that ordinary people can do, let's take care of ourselves first. This time, thank you so much, what should I call you, wizard? At this time, a policeman in a sheriff's uniform stepped up to Jerry, with a grateful look on his face. Pass. Seeing the person coming, Jerry was taken aback, and then responded immediately, Wizard, I like this title very much. I have learned magic since I was a child, in order to be brave and help others. Also, Haas as a sheriff, of course he would come over if there was such a big fire in Queens. It's really admirable to have such awareness at this age. Haas first sighed, and then he was a little confused. However, you have to go back to the police station with us, we need to register your identity. I'm sorry, my situation is special, I can't go back with you, sorry. How could it be possible for Jerry to go back to the police station with Haas to register his identity? With the secrecy ability of ordinary police stations, hackers with a little stronger ability can hack in and get his information. Without waiting for Haas to react, Jerry grabbed the broomstick and flew into the sky, disappearing from everyone's eyes. Lucy and other reporters who had finally squeezed in from behind were all thrown into vain. Jerry won't be interviewed, if it wasn't for Haas who just appeared, he would have retreated on a broomstick. There are many mistakes in what he said, and he is not a professional spy or a master of psychoanalysis. If he is not careful, he may leak some of his information because of some words that he thinks are unimportant. After Jerry disappeared, Haas showed some doubts in his eyes. Why does the voice of this Mr. Wizard sound so familiar? Captain, what are you talking about? The team members behind Haas saw him muttering alone, and poked their heads curiously. It's nothing, quickly organize an ambulance to send those wounded to the hospital. To get rid of the strange thoughts in his mind, Haas hurriedly ordered to the police officer. But, that wizard, let him go like this? Director George. Is there anything I can do? You haven't seen, he can fly, can we fly? Don't talk about those useless things, it's important to save people quickly, and let the director find me when something happens. Leaving the fire scene, Jerry pulled the broomstick high into the air, and then opened his property panel. Looking at the more than 3,000 little red stars on the attribute panel, a bright smile appeared on his face. Saving a life is better than building a 7-level pagoda. At the scene of the fire, he saved more than 20 people and earned more than 3,000 little red stars, which was more than the sum of his hard work going out on patrol every night for a week. Sure enough, the bigger the disaster, the more little red stars he can get for participating. In fact, Jerry once tested that if he creates a disaster himself and then makes a move, he can also get a little red star. For example, if he set fire to a building and then went to rescue people, he could get a little red star. But ever since he knew about this bug, Jerry secretly decided that no matter what, he couldn't use this bug to brush little red star, because this is the bottom line. Today he can set fires, save people, and earn little red stars, and tomorrow he can get little red stars by killing people with peace of mind. Once Pandora's box is opened, it is difficult to close. A person's desire is endless. If he doesn't know how to restrain it properly, then one day, he will become a lunatic who is confused by power. At that time, even if it is to sacrifice the person he loves the most, as long as it can be exchanged for strength, he will be willing. That was something he absolutely didn't want to see. His original intention to gain power was to protect himself and his loved ones, not to gain power for the sake of gaining power. The point is, there is no airtight wall in the world, and sooner or later he will be discovered if he does this kind of thing, and then he will really become a real villain. In the world of Marvel, villains? How many survive to the end? Returning to the old warehouse, he stuffed the wizard suit and broomstick into his guitar bag. Jerry put on his hat, put on his guitar bag, carefully avoided the surveillance cameras and the crowd, and returned to his community. However, just as he opened the door and was about to enter the room, a figure suddenly jumped out from the side. Jerry, how can you go out and play alone without me? Taking a closer look, it turned out that it was Aisha, who had just taken a nap and couldn't find him in the whole room. End of this chapter. Chapter 49. The first use of cooking magic go down to play. How could it be? I was summoned by the mysterious demon god. I went downstairs to get the super powerful magic beans that can increase the magic power. Looking at Elsa, who was pinching her waist and puffing up, Jerry explained with a serious face. Super powerful magic beans. Elsa had a puzzled look on her face. Look, this is it. Jerry took out a box of BB multi-flavored beans prepared in advance from his pocket. Wow, there are really super powerful magic beans. Elsa snatched BB's multi-flavored beans from Jerry's hand. When she saw the colorful jelly-like beans inside, her eyes immediately glowed green. Because the tooth change period is not over yet, Elsa was strictly forbidden by her father Haas to eat any candy. She has not eaten candy for a long time. Father will come back tonight, don't tell him that I went out and fetched super powerful magic beans for you, otherwise he will be upset. Jerry closed the door and explained to Elsa softly. On the way back just now, he recalled that when he was talking to Haas, the other party's expression seemed a little wrong, and he suddenly realized that there might be something wrong with his own voice. That's right, although they were masked, they were father and son after all, so how could Haas not be familiar with his voice at all? The most important thing is size, which is what he can't hide the most now. So just in case, Aisha is going to make up for this loophole. Don't worry, Jerry, I won't tell King Haas. Aisha patted Jerry on the shoulder, and then bouncing back to the sofa to watch TV with BB Domino in her arms. Jerry actually went down secretly to buy candy for her. How could he tell his dad about this kind of thing? If Dad learned the lesson, Jerry would not have any more candy for her. So sweet and delicious. Aisha threw a BB multi-flavored bean into her mouth, her eyes lit up immediately. It seemed that she had tasted toffee. Jerry shook his head, and put the guitar bag containing the broomstick and wizard suit under the bed in his room. BB flavored beans are not candies, just beans with different flavors, so it won't have any bad effect on Aisha's teeth. By the way, the super powerful magic beans have many flavors, so be careful when you eat them. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a sound of vomiting from the sofa. Obviously, Aisha had eaten something terrible. After a brief wash, he looked at the time. It was already past 5 o'clock. Jerry came to the kitchen, picked up his apron and put it on, and started preparing for dinner. When passing by the living room, he saw Aisha staring at Bibi's multi-flavored bean box, looking like she wanted to eat but didn't dare to eat it, so he couldn't help shaking his head with a smile. Pulling the sliding door between the kitchen and the living room, Jerry took out his wand from under his apron. "Let me try it. Is this practical home cooking magic really practical?" With a wave of his wand, the old hen that had been thawed in the pool immediately flew up and landed on the cutting board, and then rushed over with a swipe of the kitchen knife, and began to quickly chop it into chicken pieces of uniform size. At the same time, the garlic cloves flew up and molted automatically, the ginger was sliced by a fruit knife in the air, the iron pan was heated, and the cold oil was poured into the pan. The whole kitchen seemed to have self-awareness in an instant. In less than 10 minutes, a plate of braised chicken nuggets, a plate of garlic lettuce, a plate of fried shredded pork with potatoes, and a large bowl of tomato and egg soup were placed in front of Jerry. And the pots and pans used in the kitchen also began to clean themselves. It's really useful. Normally, if he cooks it himself, it would take at least an hour for the 3 dishes and 1 soup, not including the time for washing the dishes and cleaning the kitchen after cooking. But now, he just stood there waving his wand, chanting a few spells, and in less than 10 minutes, he cooked a dinner. It saves trouble and worry, saves extra time, and can read the magic book for a while, which is really very practical. In fact, at the very beginning, he naively thought that as long as he had mastered the transfiguration technique, he would be able to conjure a lot of delicacies with a wave of his magic wand. But he didn't know until he really started to learn about transfiguration. Transfiguration is not as simple as he imagined. As a separate course, it involves a lot of advanced magic knowledge and has many branches. For example, cross-species shape-shifting, body shape-shifting, transfiguration, exorcism, manifesting, and animagus shape-shifting, to name a few. But also follow the most basic GAMP deformation law. It is very clearly mentioned that when you use polymorph to change an item into another item, the effect is not permanent. Once the time is up, it will still change back to its original appearance. So, if you turn a stone into a piece of bread, that's fine, but if you eat the bread, then after the magic effect ends, you won't have the bread, but the stone. But if you turn a cup of chai into rum, that's fine. Because even if the magic is lifted, it will not cause any harm to your body. The final conclusion is that it is impossible to conjure up a table of edible delicacies out of thin air by means of transfiguration. In fact, most of the methods used by wizards to cook with magic are the methods Jerry uses now. All tools and ingredients are needed, but it saves a lot of time. However, there is a limit to using this cooking magic, that is, the wizard's own cooking skills must be passed. Because the taste of the food you cook with cooking magic will be exactly the same as the taste of the food you cook yourself. If you are a novice in the kitchen, these culinary magic tricks will not work for you. This is the same as some related housework magic. The effect of magic depends on the wizard's own housework level. Therefore, whether it is kitchen cooking magic or housework magic, they are all very simple and easy to learn magic, but if you want to have a good magic effect after casting, you need the wizard himself to have a certain level of cooking and housework. Fortunately, Jerry is quite confident about this point. His housework and cooking skills, after so many years of training, are still at the 90th level, not to mention the 100th level. It was the first time to use cooking magic, and the effect was unexpectedly good. Jerry was satisfied with the 3 dishes and 1 soup, and threw another heat preservation magic before leaving the kitchen. Haas usually doesn't get off work until around 6:30 to 7 o'clock, and there is still more than an hour before he can read the magic book for a while. There is no end to learning. If you want to use magic well, you have to spend more time studying and not relax. End of this chapter. Chapter 50. The Wizard is the same style, you deserve it. SHIELD headquarters, Director Nick Fury stood by the window, patiently listening to the report of the right-hand man, Agent Maria Hill. So, the capture force led by General Ross was completely defeated by the Green Titan Hulk in the form of Dr. Banner at Corvo University in Virginia. Yes, Dr. Banner has taken General Ross's daughter, Dr. Betty, and fled Corvo University without a trace. Hill nodded. Have you found out where he's going next? Nick Fury turned around and asked. Hill handed the report to Fury. According to the technical personnel of our logistics department, Through the email communication records of Dr. Banner called out by the system, it can be determined that he has been in touch with a man named Mr. Lan, and seems to want to use this to find a way to restore his body to normal. Therefore, we judge that he should take Dr. Betty to find this Mr. Lan next time. Mr. Blue? Dr. Samuel Stern, Department of Biological Cells, Grayburn College, New York, so they're going to New York. Nick Fury frowned as he looked at the information about Mr. Lan on the information in his hand. Yes, after getting information from us, General Ross has led people to ambush near Grayburn College in advance, and wants to take Dr. Banner back to study in one fell swoop, our side. Hill had a questioning look on his face. Nick Fury thought for a moment, then replied, General Ross belongs to the military, and we can't get too involved in his actions, but judging from the current situation, they are unlikely to succeed. In this way, you go to New York yourself, and if Dr. Banner escapes the arrest, try to find a way to track his location, and then don't alarm him again. Yes, Director. Hill nodded and was about to leave. At this time, Nick Fury seemed to think of something, and then called Agent Hill again. When you go to New York this time, find time to get in touch with this kid, learn about his situation by the way, and find out his true identity. Hill took a piece of information handed over by Nick Fury, on which were some photos of Jerry wearing a wizard suit and riding a broomstick into the fire scene, as well as related information about his chivalrous actions during this period. Not long after Hill left, a female agent wearing a black combat tights, with curly reddish-brown hair and an explosive figure pushed the door and walked in. Natasha, how is the situation over there? Seeing the person coming, Fury asked without any surprise. It turns out that the person here is none other than Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow of SHIELD, an all-round agent who is proficient in disguise, infiltration, hacking, and combat. At present, he has successfully mixed into Stark Industries and is Tony Stark's secretary for the time being. However, according to my observation, Tony's physical condition seems to have a lot of problems, and his mental state is not very stable. Black Widow truthfully reported the progress of the mission and the information obtained during this period to Fury. Palladium element poisoning? I know, you continue to lurk and monitor Tony Stark's body and mind, and report to me in time if you have any problems. Hearing the Black Widow's report, Fury didn't have any surprises on his expression. A week later, Queens, New York. What do you think of the wizards that have emerged recently? Wizard? I watched the live broadcast of the fire rescue. Regardless of whether he can use magic or not, I like him very much. I think he is a hero. Yes, that's it. I don't think he is a child at all. He may be a dwarf, or he may be a small old man, or he is cursed and shrunken. You see, all wizards in the story are like this. I think he's just a kid, maybe in some kind of magic school. In fact, I've always believed in magic, and I've even set up a website for it. Wizard, if you can see this report, you can enter my website. Our website is XXXX. Oh, what a wizard, he's just a freak, a magic clown. I don't believe in magic, science, we have to believe in science. You mean that elegant Mr. Wizard, he saved my life, I like him, or I love him, he is a child? It doesn't matter, I can accept sibling love. By the way, Mr. Little Wizard, my sister is very rich and can support you. If you have time, call me. My number is XXXX. Okay, that's the end of today's street interview. It seems that most of our citizens still like Mr. Wizard who rescued more than 20 citizens at the fire scene. I'm your favorite Lucy. See you tomorrow. Sitting on the sofa, watching the report about himself on TV, Jerry was quite satisfied. Although some people expressed their dislike and distrust of him in the interviews, the majority of people recognized him, especially those who had been saved by him. No matter how perfect a person is, he cannot make everyone like him, and Jerry knows this very well. His purpose is not to make those citizens like him, as long as most of them agree and make his image positive, that's enough. After all, he saved people for Little Red Star. Jerry, how do I feel about the broom that the wizard rides? I seem to have seen it somewhere. At this time, Aisha's words next to him suddenly made Jerry's heart tighten. Forgot, when he just returned 2 weeks ago, Aisha happened to see the flying broom in his hand, and he explained that he bought it for sweeping the floor at home. Although the broomstick looks like a broom, after years of improvement by wizards, it still has a little difference in appearance from ordinary brooms. Wizards who know magic have been popular on major TV stations these days, and Aisha, who is obsessed with magic, will certainly not let it go. Now her first idol is the wizard played by Jerry. Ahem, I think that as the Snow Queen, you need a new magic robe, just like the wizards, and a broom that is exactly the same. I saw that Annie and Susan both bought the same one the day before yesterday. What? Annie and the others actually bought new equipment behind my back? Hey, that's disgusting. When Aisha heard that Anne and Susan had bought the same equipment as a wizard, she immediately put aside the matter of the broomstick. That's right, I think they must have lost to you when they fought you last time, so they want to secretly buy more powerful equipment. Jerry nodded quickly, and continued, well, it's okay now, I'll take you to Lena's magic house to buy a better set than them. Really? Jerry, you are the best, 1,000 times better than Dad, 10,000 times better. When Aisha heard that Jerry was going to take him to buy the same suit as the wizard, she jumped up on the sofa happily, and forgot about the broomstick in a blink of an eye. End of this chapter. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.